Senator Turner, you just alluded to, making decision making around whether or not you might run for office again. When you were teasing We Are Somebody, a lot of people were wondering if you were in fact teasing a campaign announcement. How seriously are you thinking about running for office again? And do you think it would be, even hypothetically, do you think it would probably be still in the House of Representatives, or are you looking elsewhere?
I'm looking elsewhere. I'm looking at a couple of places right now. I did an excellent job. I was very good at it, and I enjoyed the work, even though it was very hard, because I am the type of person that I'm going to do what I think is right. And if other people don't agree, that's on them. But I got to be able, there's an ultimate power in my mind that I answer to at the end of the day. I may run again. I'm not all cards on the table. And yes, a lot of people, I got so many calls, so many text messages. And some people were delighted to see that the announcement was an organization, and others were really disappointed. And they let me know many people want me to run. There's not a day that goes by, or let me just say a week that goes by, where somebody is not saying to me they wish that I would run again. I was just recently in Michigan, in Wisconsin, in Milwaukee, there with some striking UAW workers too. In New York, like everywhere I go, Rejoice, to this very day, people are asking me, am I going to run again? So I want them to hear here first on your show that all options are on the table for me. But I don't just want to get out there and just run for anything. I got to make sure it's not necessary. You run in the win, and I've sacrificed a lot, as you know, and many of your viewers have know 2 presidential campaigns, 2 back-to-back congressional runs, and we know that the forces came at me very hard. And I am often reminded that they came at me so hard because they know what I would do once elected to office. I'm going to stand by my word.
I do want to talk about that just a little bit if we could, because those of us who were following it understood that you were up significantly in the polls before AIPAC, DMFI put millions of dollars against you and for Shontel Brown in your race. And that has been a pattern across the country where AIPAC has specifically targeted left-leaning, specifically targeting Black and brown left-leaning candidates because of their support of the people of Palestine and ending Israel's occupation there. And in fact, it hasn't been limited to Black candidates. Notably, Andy Levin, Jewish candidate who was, I understand, I think a synagogue leader or something like that.
Yeah, he was
deeply involved in his own religious community, had his campaign ended after AIPAC aligned against him. I think Summer Lee was one of the few that were able to survive the AIPAC success rate. I think they have a 98% success rate in races that they enter. This is not a problem that's going away, and in fact may become more acute because of the ongoing crisis in Gaza since October 7th. So I wonder if you are looking ahead, not just for your own candidacy, but for the candidacy and of a number of progressive incumbents that are now being targeted by their fellow members of Congress, et cetera, because of taking a stand in defense of the people of Palestine's right to exist. How you reckon the left is going to start to get around that, if it can get around that?
Yeah, it's going to be difficult. There's no doubt about it. I mean, as you laid it out, and my race became the template. When the leader of DMFI was interviewed, he made it very clear that I think they may have called it the Ohio 11 strategy. And Congresswoman Lee benefited from time.
So here it is. Tell it like it is, host Bill Maher, as in tell it like it is written on the company memo. Host, look at the panel he puts together to talk about the Ukraine war.
I can't wait. Is this the one that
yes.
Say,
watch this.
CNN senior political analyst and anchor and author of Lincoln and the Fight for Peace, John Avlon, our returning champion.
Oh, so it's not Jim Sciutto. It's another guy from CNN, John Avlon.
Oh, yeah, I looked him up. He's a piece of shit, too.
Yeah, of course.
And she's an award-winning special correspondent for PBS NewsHour and contributor to The New Yorker, whose memoir is called No Ordinary Assignment.
Ooh,
Jane
she was a
Ferguson.
ninja.
Jane, what a great pleasure to have you.
Wow, that's a great panel of diverse opinion he's got there. That's living proof that scientists might not have human cloning down, but opinion cloning is coming along just fine. Because watch the opinions they have on Ukraine war.
And since you are a war correspondent,
And
I
a
thought we
basic
would
bitch.
talk about war, because that is what everything in the news today is war. I mean, especially the ones in Ukraine and Gaza and the Ukraine war. We haven't talked about it in a while, but it's big in the news this week because the Republicans want to link more aid to Ukraine to Biden doing something about the border, which would not be a bad idea in itself. I don't know why they have to be linked, but just to give you some.
But he was saying it like it was a bad thing, and then he realized, hey, wait a minute, I'm actually for doing something about the border. Did you notice that?
He's just not going to look into anything.
He's not going to look into
He hasn't
anything.
talked about Ukraine in a while. What were you talking about? Bud Light, Dylan Mulvaney cans?
And if you don't understand why you would link a policy that you want to a policy that the other side wants, maybe you shouldn't be talking about politics for a living.
This is Politics 101. Oh, you want more Ukraine funding? Well, you have to fund the thing I want. That's Politics 101.
The way he says, like, I don't know why it's been that way, but I accept everything. It can't be fixed or improved.
He's been wrong for a long time. We did a segment on Clinton today from back in the 90s where they were talking about, his long history of assaulting every woman within 5 feet of him. And, Bill Maher was there back then. Oh, well, I didn't know our system of justice is accusation is guilt. He was all on board.
He said,
defending him.
Bill Maher said that, that Monica Lewinsky came to Washington, D.C. with knee pads. He did that joke.
That was Maher?
Yeah. It was either Bill Maher or
no.
Who's the
Michael Moore?
Michael Moore said that
on Bill Maher's show.
On Bill Maher's show, and everyone laughed.
I am a little surprised at him, but yeah, no. When we showed that clip, I said, yeah, that's exactly how it was back then. All these people who would go on to be the most ardent Me Tooers, they were all laughing at Monica, laughing at all the women who came out and accused him. Everyone thought it was a hoot when Carville made his little crack about, you drag a dollar bill through a trailer park, you'll find all kinds of stuff out there.
Yeah.
Everyone thought that was real clever.
Well, watch this. Let's watch this video and watch how they all agree, and they're all completely right. It's like a fantasy land watching Bill Maher. This is the guy who's supposed to give you the straight dope about politics. And watch this, what they say.
Stats. Okay. They've spent 111 billion so far on this.
Already off.
They want 61 billion more. I think some of that is for Israel as well. Problem is, it's a stalemate.
It's a stalemate.
Okay.
Not that Russia has gained all the territory it ever wanted. It's got Crimea. It's got the Donbass. It's got a direct path to the sea. Everything it's always wanted. It's a stalemate. That's hooray. That's what they always wanted. What? We got a stalemate. Okay, so watch this.
After 2 years, they say the front line has moved less than 500 square miles of territory have changed hands. 150,000 Russian dead. 70.
By the way, I'm starting a new dating service called Stalemate. It's for folks who want to find someone just as uninformed about the wars as they are.
Oh, I thought it links hookers up with Bill Maher.
Yeah. Stalemate. Their slogan is, I don't know. What do you want to do? Okay, here we go. Watch this facts. These facts he threw out that aren't facts.
Only 70,000 Ukrainian dead, Jimmy.
1,000 Ukrainian dead.
What?
Bill Maher just said, let me back it up.
150,000 Russian dead.
150,000 Russian dead. This is the numbers Bill Maher has. And how many Ukrainians dead? Now, the actual number is 400,000. They don't have anybody left to go into their army. No, that's why they have to pull guys off of bus stops and throw them into a van and conscript them. That's what's happening.
They only had 70,000
The average
men under 25 in the whole country.
The average age of their fighting is like in their 40s.
It's 43.
43 years old.
43 now.
And they're doing numbers like basically Russia has Hamas casualties versus Ukraine's Israel casualties.
70,000 Ukrainian dead.
So he's 70. He's only off by a factor of 400%. Where do you, Bill? Who is writing this down for you? What kind of morons
I'm gonna talk to my
write
buddy.
for Bill? You know someone who writes for Bill Maher right
A
now?
friend of mine, and I've been meaning it because I just have to know.
Do they go, well, I hope your friend who writes for Bill Maher, when you talk to him, says, well, of course I know the truth, but I can't tell Bill the truth. I'll get fired.
I didn't get enough time alone with them to ask about it, but we laughed about some other things. Remember, Bill Maher was going to go back to a show during the writers' strike. These are all guild writers. So
yeah, he was going to do a show without writers.
I'm not speaking for my friend or it, but I got the sense the writers were like, okay, Bill, like they're not.
So now they're filling him full of false information to try to make him to embarrass himself. But
no, I'll bet a bunch of them don't know jack shit. I'll bet that. But if you work for Bill Maher, do you think he wants to hear? Like, I'm like, all right, I'm in that writer's room. And even I know how off those numbers are. And I know what it's like being in a writer's room where everybody doesn't want to believe the thing you're saying is real, and they're all wrong. And he seems like a guy that doesn't take he's like, oh, how could that be? 500,000. You haven't looked into it, Bill?
When he had Thomas Frank on a while ago, and this was in the 2016 election, and Frank had just written Listen Liberal. And he starts talking about why people have turned away from the Democratic Party. And that was the moment where everyone was supposed to be circling the wagons around Hillary. No negativity about Hillary. And I have no idea why he invited him on, because as soon as he started putting out his thesis about how the Democrats lost the working class, Maher just tears into, you're the kind of liberal people's eyes just glaze over as soon as they start talking. You're just what you're saying, it just turns people off. Just would not let him make his case at all. So yeah, if you're a writer on that show, if he's going to treat a guest
Well, then why don't we just go right into our next guest, who I think will appreciate you being fired up. That is Leanne Foulahan, who's the education director at the People's Forum, an editor at 1804 Books, and an organizer with the Shut It Down for Palestine Coalition, joining us once again to check in on the global uprising for Gaza and Palestine. Leanne, thank you so much for being back with us.
Thanks for having me. Always great to be here.
Well, pleasure is all ours. And let me start here. I woke up this morning and I was greeted by an interesting headline in Politico. Vice President Kamala Harris urges White House. I don't even remember the rest of it, but it was like basically how Kamala Harris is urging Joe Biden to speak more compassionately about Palestinians. But it's obvious that there's a lot of leaking going on in Washington, D.C. to the media by the Biden administration and individuals in the Biden administration to try to make it seem as if they're not really on the same page with Benjamin Netanyahu and the entire Israeli leadership vis-a-vis the genocide of Gaza. I wonder how you evaluate both the obvious reasons why they want to distance themselves, which is anger in the United States, but also how you evaluate their actual complicity despite their words.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think that these the tone switch over the past couple of days, the attempt, like you said, to distance themselves from Netanyahu is really just exposing that they're having a PR crisis right now. The State Department went over the heads of Congress essentially and approved more millions of dollars of military aid over to Israel. The complicity is still very much concrete. It's still very much there. There's still very much backing this genocidal assault on the Palestinian people, but they really are very uncomfortable with the isolation on both the world stage and domestically that it's bringing about. So I think that what we're seeing is an attempt to say, hey, you know, we're not fully backing this. Hey, we did say to be careful about civilians. It's not changing, in a sense, the material basis for that support and that complicitness. And in fact, we can't deny the major role the United States has played in orchestrating this genocidal assault. It doesn't change that at all. I think this is an attempt to sort of appease the discontent, the dissent, the uprisings that they have on their hands. Just yesterday, staffers of the White House staged a protest in front of the White House. Biden's own staffers said, you know, we don't approve of what you've been doing. We want a ceasefire. It's been echoed by the millions over the past 2 months across the country. Actions are only becoming more frequent, and people are actually gaining the skills to be doing these actions, and people are becoming better organizers. They're happening more quickly. So I think that Biden and his administration, including Kamala Harris, are in a very uncomfortable position. They don't want to be uncomfortable. They would like to continue going on as usual, supporting Israel the way they've been supporting Israel, but they basically Netanyahu has backed them into a corner, and they don't have an exit strategy right now. So these I see as attempts to try to convince the general public that there's some sort of moral standing that the White House has right now, but it doesn't seem that people are really being convinced.
Well, looks like we might have lost Rania here, but I will ask you another question I have here. Let me pull this up, though, because I want to get this right, Leanne, but it's just interesting polling that sort of speaks to this very issue. The most recent Economist YouGov poll asked people, do they want to increase, decrease, or maintain the same military aid to Israel? And the plurality is for decreasing military aid to Israel. Now, I have to say, even I was surprised about that. I mean, obviously, there's a lot of opposition, but maybe there was some other time in the past this was true, but it seems almost unprecedented to have a plurality of people in the United States of America saying send less military aid to Israel. And of the clear majority, it's either send less or keep it the same. I mean, so it does feel that we're seeing something of a change. I don't want to say a sea change, but something of a change towards how this issue is seen by the majority of Americans.
I totally agree. I think this is unprecedented. And it's exposing something about the way the system works that is going to be very difficult for the general public to forget. We have, on the one hand, bipartisan support for Israel. There's very little calls, both on either side of the major parties, for any sort of concrete change in U.S. support for Israel. But we also now are seeing bipartisan, I want to say beyond bipartisan, we're seeing broad support for an end to this kind of support, a ceasefire. We're seeing broad calls on across the political spectrum for an end, in particular right now, and I think we should be clear about that, in particular right now, for an end to U.S. support for the genocidal war right now. This, in a sense, is outlining the completely different interests that the White House has, no matter which party they're in, with the interests of the general public. And it's very demonstrative. And I think that for this to be happening around the issue of Palestine is unprecedented. I also think it is unprecedented, the level of violence that the Israeli state, it's not unprecedented, the level of violence that the Israeli state is committing against the Palestinian people, but the scale, the shock that it's producing on the world stage, the massive massacring of Palestinian people, children, families, essential infrastructure, you cannot deny the impact that has on the human consciousness. And when you have a political class that is serving only profit and imperial agendas, and then you have people who are trying to see the world and understand it, and are trying to make their own decisions about what's right and wrong, you're going to see that those interests are fundamentally different. And I think that's what's being demonstrated right now.
You know, one other thing I just want to check in on, and I think that is real, is obviously these things, so much of what's happening in terms of public opinion is being driven by the horrible images we're seeing, but a lot of it is being driven by the activism that has been happening on the ground that has been bringing the issue, right in front of people
All right, Brian, thank you. Also tonight, a shocking new Harvard-Harris poll finds most of the 18 to 24-year-olds believe that Israel should be, quote, ended, not kidding you, and turned over to Hamas. This is perhaps, I guess, not surprising, Tommy, because the youths go to the colleges where they teach this.
Right.
But you would expect the educated people at the New York Times to understand what's happening here as we now discuss. But I saw this headline that caught our eye. Look at this. This headline: campus crackdowns have chilling effect on pro-Palestinian speech.
Yeah.
The byline underneath that: universities are under tremendous pressure to stamp out anti-Semitism, but some say that it's causing fear and curbing free expression. Am I missing something here?
Yeah, we're missing a lot. And this is the tuition that these brats want us to pay for, by the way. But let's think about this. I'm so glad these universities are now in support of free speech, because I know when I go to speak on a college campus, that my mere presence is labeled hate speech. And they say that I shouldn't be there. There's protests that even if a conservative shows up on campus to speak, but now they're worried about the chilling effect on pro-Palestinian speech. A lot of this not just pro-Palestinian speech, but obviously anti-Jewish, anti-Semitic, anti-Israel, pro-Hamas. So you've got the New York Times trying to do all these mental gymnastics to make this seem like it's okay. Clear what side they're on. But I think as you see these admissions or these applications drop, I think these elite universities need to be terrified of the culture they've created, and people are gonna, I guess, decide with where they want to go to school. And I hope that they do. Take matters into your own hands. Don't go to these schools.
Yeah, look, so we're like 70 days removed from the war in Israel and Gaza, but yet we are still, including Bill Maher, having to explain why what the Harvard president couldn't come to terms with accepting, that the river to the sea is a call for genocide of the Israeli people. Here's Bill Maher explaining it.
The Palestinian people should know your leaders and the useful idiots on college campuses who are their allies are not doing you any favors by keeping alive the river to the sea myth. Here's the river, here's the sea. Oh, I see. It means you get all of it. Not just the West Bank, which was basically the original UN partition deal you rejected because you wanted all of it and always have. And so you attacked and lost, and attacked again and lost, and attacked again and lost. If I give you the benefit of the doubt and say your plan for a completely Jewless Palestine isn't that all the Jews should die, what is the only other option?
Katie, can you help us out here?
Well, all of these.
Welcome to I hope my mic is working. Welcome to a Monday edition of the Nick and CJ show. I know you only see me, but I'm starting it out a little bit early. If you remember, by the way, I'm CJ. I'm your host for today. That CJ stands for Compton J, or J in real life. Follow me on Twitter, Compton Made Me. Let me check the comments to make sure my mic. This is the new mic. I got a white one now this time. Can you see it? Yeah, there you go. So thank you so much for those that donated to the fundraiser, and there you go. All right, so we got a lot to get to today. That's the reason why I'm going a little bit early before Nick gets here and our guests. We have Wyatt Reed today. Let me go over what we have today. So I'll throw the graphic up here. Of course, there's the story of RFK Jr. saying some just ridiculous stuff about Palestinians being pampered. Then Joe Biden in the bottom left corner right there. Joe Biden is destroying his coalition right before our eyes. And with the latest thing immigration. He's like, hey, young people, I want you out of my coalition. Black people, I want you out of my coalition. Hispanic people, out of my coalition. Anti-genocide people, out of my coalition. That's essentially, and now he's saying that to people who are pro-immigration. I'm sorry, are pro no borders. I would say that. But anyway, then there's Netanyahu. Hostages were killed by Israel, and then some relating stories to that. There's a lot to cover. And then we're also going to hopefully get to John Fetterman and how progressives have pivoted from John Fetterman. 40% of borrowers miss student loan payments, and then homelessness is up 12% to a new record high. So all of those stories we're hoping we're going to be able to get to. Hit that like button. Let's get to people have we had come. We've had over 400. Okay, so let's hit that. Let's make our target 300. 300 is the target. So if everybody hit that like button, really would appreciate it. Let's see. We have this. Let me check super chats, and we actually have some new members to announce first. So let me do that first. Got a couple of new members. Oh, actually, that was on a different video. Yeah, that was on a clip that we had 2 members. So I'll make that announcement. I have to go look it up and make that announcement later because it wasn't here during this stream that they did that. All right, so after you hit that like button, now let's get back to the story on the screen. And I'm going to rewind it a little bit because I do want to just catch the first 30 seconds or the first 45 seconds where they actually put up a poll that shows what young people are thinking. And this is the youth vote. These are the people who are at the protest. These are the people they're talking about on college campuses. This does not bode well for Israel and the future of Israel. So let's listen to this, and then I'll pause it when we get to the actual graphic of the poll.
All right, Brian, thank you. Also tonight, a shocking new Harvard-Harris poll finds most of the 18 to 24-year-olds believe that Israel should be, quote, ended, not kidding you, and turned over to Hamas.
That is amazing. I just let him finish the sentence, but I'm just going to slightly rewind to put that graphic on the screen. Now, this poll, this poll, I'm looking for, it doesn't have who it's by, but it says anti-Semitic generation. So because you choose not to be down with the Zionists and genocide, people that are 18 to 24 are being called anti-Semitic generation. Is that the new name? They're going to go from Gen Z to anti-Semitic Z, or is that what they're going to do? Oh, here it goes right here. Okay, so this is a Harvard-Harris poll. So I'm going to bring it up in the background. I'm going to let it play some more, get a little more details, but I'm going to look that poll
turned over to Hamas. This is perhaps, I guess, not surprising, Tommy, because the youths go to the colleges where they teach this.
Right.
But you would expect the educated people at the New York Times to understand what's happening here as we now discuss. But I saw this headline that caught our eye. Look at this. This headline: campus crackdowns have chilling effect on pro-Palestinian speech.
Yeah.
The byline underneath that: universities are under tremendous pressure to stamp out anti-Semitism, but some say that it's causing fear and curbing free expression. Am I missing something here?
Yeah, you are.
We're missing a lot. And this is the tuition that these brats want us to pay for, by the way. But let's think about this. I'm so glad these universities are now in support of free speech, because I know when I go to speak on a college campus, that my mere presence is labeled hate speech. And they say that I shouldn't be there. There's protests that even if a conservative shows up on campus to speak, but now they're worried about the chilling effect on pro-Palestinian speech. A lot of this not just pro-Palestinian speech, but obviously anti-Jewish, anti-Semitic, anti-Israel, pro-Hamas. So you've got the New York Times trying to...
Their whole game is conflating. Let me turn my TV down. Their whole game to this PR thing is conflating Jews It's conflating Jews with Zionism or Zionists. That's the whole game. If they can't do that, then its whole genocidal apartheid state will fall by the wayside. I do want to bring up another receipt here. I'm going to be moving a little quickly to get through everything. This one right here. This is the actual poll to. What? It wasn't even an option to say no. These corporations. But anyway, the Hindustan Times has this headline: 51% young Americans vote for Hamas rule, propose Israel's dissolution. And I'll read just a little bit. Is woke culture pushing young Americans to support Hamas? Poll ignites debate. A shocking poll revealed that most young Americans think Israel should cease to exist and be handed over to Hamas, the militant group that confronts or controls Gaza. The Harvard-Harris poll conducted this week showed that 51% of Americans 18 to 24 supported the radical solution to the Israel-Palestinian conflict, which would entail the end of the Jewish state and its replacement by a Palestinian entity under Hamas rule. Only 32% of the same age group favored a two-state solution. So let me pause here. 51% say, nope, this is Palestine. 32% are saying, two-state solution. So this is, if I was like the Biden administration and I'm reading this, if I'm not, let me change that. If I am a Zionist and I'm reading this, if I am Jonathan Black, for example, I will be reading this and as Nick would say, in horror, reading this, because 32% think the two-state solution is the key, and that is understand, the two-state solution is already a conservative position. The two-state solution is a conservative position. But anyway, don't want to prolong the point. Let's move to some more receipts. Yeah. Let's take this one down. There is a lot of video footage to get through. I'm going to move fairly quickly to get through most of these items. Yeah. And because I want to kind of squeeze in the Fetterman, how progressives are pivoting from Fetterman after he proclaims that he's not a progressive. So I'm trying to squeeze in that story. So let's go here. Biden destroys his coalition. I'll just start from one of the videos. So I do want to kind of categorize the coalition. You got the pro-immigration or pro-undocumented sort of pool or Latino pool. Then you have the Black pool. Then you have the youth pool. So those are sort of the three pools that form his coalition, or that form his coalition that we're going to be talking about. Let's listen to this first video here, and a shout out to Case Study QB for using a lot of his videos today, for curating this video from MSNBC, and I'll set it up this way. This is a Black Voters Matter. Latasha Brown discusses the broken promises Biden 2024 made to Black voters and which is the bigger danger, voting for Trump or staying home. So that's essentially what this video covers. It's not a long video, 2 minutes, 20 seconds. Let's watch, then discuss.
When I'm talking to Black people, they're very concerned about the environment. It's not just in what has been passed. People are saying, what are you going to do for me now? In addition to that, there's a lot of, when we know that a lot of young voters and first-time voters engaged in the process because they wanted to see criminal justice reform. That simply has not happened. We also knew that a lot of people that we talked to were interested in voting rights. and making sure voting rights legislation was passed. That hasn't happened. In addition to that, that there has to be the metrics. I think there's a disconnect in terms of the metrics in which sometimes the party uses as the metrics of success and how people see success. So while there is a low unemployment rate, there's a lot of economic anxiety among Black voters that I'm talking to that are interested in literally what does this mean economically in this kind of.
There's another story I'm going to be getting to, and it's related to this. I don't know. That's related to this, and there because 40% of the homeless. I'm sorry, 12. The homeless population has rose by 12%, hitting a new record. And this is just from 1 year. So how can the economy be doing good, Joe Biden, while at the same time, the homeless rate has skyrocketed, and the homeless rate has skyrocketed primarily because of rent. And we'll get to that in another story. Hopefully I'll get to that, but let's move through this video here.
Environment where they're seeing the rise of racism, when they're seeing the destruction of affirmative action and those kind of programs, that leads to a certain level of uncertainty of what our economic future is.
You know, Latasha, let me stick with you before we go to a break. You know, the President Biden's mantra, and I think it's a terrific mantra, don't compare me to the almighty, compare me to the alternative. But if that alternative is Trump or any Republican.
That's so preposterous. If you think about, don't compare me to the almighty, compare me to the my opposition or whatever he said. So don't compare me to God. Believe me, nobody's comparing you to God. I think more accurately describing. Anyway, I'm not going to say that. That might not be good for YouTube censors. So let's just play the video.
Given all the things that haven't happened from the Black voters' perspective, is there any way that those voters would either vote for the Republican, or is the bigger danger they stay home?
You know, I think the biggest danger is staying home. I think that Black voters are actually more sophisticated than the media likes to give us credit for, that we're very pragmatic voters. And so at the end of the day, will there be a run to Trump? Absolutely not. I think what we'll see is people be so discontented with.
Now, understand, even though she's giving some truth nuggets here, she is wholly a Democrat. So her focus is getting people there. Her focus is framing things to get people there. Now, she is saying more about why, she is talking more about why Black people may not be supporting Joe Biden, and it's an accurate assessment in how she describes it, but she still lacks the solution because she still have a colonized mind.
Process that they're so frustrated that they'll disengage. And so
and this is the last part, because when she says they're not going to go to Trump, Trump is already getting 20% of the Black vote, and is higher with Black men. Let's continue.
So that's the bigger issue. And I think there are three things that we got to do. One, it has to be more money. You have to make sure that they have a message. And I think I agree with Cornell exactly, that there has to be a message that's tailored directly to certain constituency groups. And that you have to make sure that you're lifting up, you have your messengers. Who is actually giving the message? When we're looking at television ads, that's not going to get it. That is not where a lot of people in the communities that we're talking to get their news from, or actually get the newest information around what Biden has done. And I think that those are going to be the three things that he's going to have to do going forward to get the bill to support that.
All right, so that's the 2-minute video. I think her name is Latasha. She breaks down some good information. Unfortunately, like I said, these
when I'm talking to Black people, they're very concerned.
Disparaging these Black people who are adjacent to white power structures by supporting either one of the parties. They still cannot make a determination on the correct solution, which is why they're still flawed, even if they make the correct diagnosis. Wait, I just had a quick anxiety flash that I've been on mute this whole time. Remember when I used to do that all the time? But let's get to the next video. This next video is also another one speaking to the coalition, because what recently has been very baffling to me is him and his willingness to make a deal on immigration. Because that's just another, it's like you are hemorrhaging support, and then you're like, how can I hemorrhage more support? Oh, immigration. Let's do some right-wing shit on immigration, as if you haven't already been doing that. Increasing the funding of ICE, increasing deportations. He's saying I'm doubling down on that.
Jeannie, though, when you look at Michigan, how does the president rationalize that he's losing some rank and file?
Hang on a second. I thought I made it larger, but let's start from the large view.
Jeannie, though, when you look at Michigan, how does the president rationalize that he's losing some rank and file favorability when it comes to union workers?
Yeah, it's really difficult, I think, for him to understand, because he has been selling himself as the strongest union labor president we've ever had, the first to walk the picket line. And of course, his major opponent, Donald Trump, went to a non-union shop during that strike. So it's got to be really frustrating for him. But I do think even bigger or equal.
I'm going to pause here because it is quite shocking at times, or eye-opening at times. I don't know the right word. To hear people talk about issues and they pretend, or at least pretend like they don't know, where this stems from.
Because he has been selling him.
And this is the point I'm making. And let me rewind it so she can make the point. He's selling himself as a labor president doesn't make him a labor president.
Losing some rank and file favorability when it comes to union workers.
Yeah, it's really difficult, I think, for him to understand, because he has been selling himself as the strongest union labor president we've ever had.
It's difficult for him to understand. You notice she didn't say because he is doing all these great things. She says he has been selling himself as such. And it's just not working. I mean, this is so obvious. You can't break a strike with legislation and then turn around and say, I'm a labor president. It's just bizarre that you think that's the case, but let's continue.
The first to walk the picket line. And of course, his major opponent, Donald Trump, went to a non-union shop during that strike. So it's got to be really frustrating for him. But I do think even bigger or equally as troubling for him has got to be the numbers with African Americans, suburban women, and young people 18 to 34. And, I just look at those young people. He needs them to come out. He needs African Americans and suburban women to win in places like Michigan and Pennsylvania. If he doesn't have them, in addition to the union folks, he has a big challenge on his hand. And that's why what's happening in Congress with immigration is so troubling for him, because if he gives away too much to Republicans, he's going to lose those progressives who are already frustrated about the Israel-Hamas war.
Now, because this is what the Biden administration is banking on. They're banking on you guys are going to forget as soon as they bring up Trump. That's what they're banking on. I personally, if I was a Democratic voter, that would offend me. Now, I do have some sunlight coming in through my window, so you see a little light on my face. I'll fix it in a little bit. But I'll rewind just a little bit so she can repeat this last point. This is also baffling for me and for a lot of people about what he's doing on immigration, considering your poll numbers. It's just bizarre.
The union folks, he has a big challenge on his hand. And that's why what's happening in Congress with immigration is so troubling for him, because if he gives away too much to Republicans, he's going to lose those progressives who are already frustrated about the Israel-Hamas war. And for young people, of course, student loans. So being an incumbent is never easy. And he's got a huge challenge on his hand in a place like Michigan, trying to balance all these competing claims and coalitions.
He absolutely does, because Michigan, remember, Hillary Clinton lost by
it was just over 10,000 votes, right?
10,704 votes.
Remarkable.
So Jill Stein wasn't there. Potentially she would have won
Right.
Michigan.
Or maybe if she had been there, and by that I mean Hillary Clinton.
Yes, that's very true.
Right. Let's
Coming
get
up,
to the next video. I'm kind of speeding through these so we can get to the next topic. let's talk more about how let's watch another video about how he's destroying his coalition. And let's do abandon Biden first. So now let's zoom in to one of the most important states for any Democrat when they're trying to win the presidency, and that is Michigan, where Rome is. So let's listen to, I think her name is Debbie Dingell, talk, and understand she's not at all progressive. She just knows she represents areas where there's a high populations of Arabs. So she knows she needs to speak to them if she wants their votes.
One of the big issues for voters in Michigan is the issue of how President Biden is handling the war in the Middle East, with some calling to, quote, abandon Biden over his handling of the Israel-Hamas war. Of course, Michigan has one of the largest Muslim populations in the country. Is there anything President Biden can do to win back those voters?
No, he cannot.
There's a lot that has to be done, and this is a very serious issue. I lived in Dearborn for 40 years with a man that I loved. I moved last year because of redistricting. I know this community. They are hurting. All of us in this country need to understand what's happening in Gaza right now. You can fight about how many thousands of people have been killed, but 6,000 to 8,000 children have been killed. 85% of the people in Gaza have had to leave their homes. They're living in shelters. Disease is going up. There's one toilet for 220 people, one shower for 4,500 people. They don't have food. They don't have medicine. They don't have utilities. And I can't tell you the number of families that I've spoken to who've lost entire families. Entire families. We got to show some empathy and compassion. A Jewish baby.
So this is it. This is one of the things. Well, I'm not going to say it that way, but what's the value in prayers and sympathy, and whatever word you want to say to show compassion? What is the value in that when in the next breath you are voting yes to send billions of dollars to Israel? You see this play. This is the lane of the white moderate that Malcolm X speaks about, and who falls into this lane. All of the NATO left, the Majority Report, the TYTs, where they, we got this great critique, but you're still handing the crazy psychopath weapons and monies to do more killings. And then when they do it, then you want to say ceasefire. It is just truly bizarre. Let me get to the next video. But I also want to read this comment. Yes, I came on early. I don't know if I said that earlier, but if I didn't, I started a little early because I was going to go live Saturday, and I had a ton of stories to do, like 7 or 8 stories. Mic issue, but as you can see now, I went from the black mic to the white mic, so I have a new mic now. So no more issues. So yeah, I'm trying to cover those stories so that we are able to, get that content out for these stories. All right, so let's get to the next video about how Joe Biden is destroying his coalition. I'll put up this headline first, or a couple of headlines first. This one here, is this from the year? Oh, there's ABC News. Biden supporters push back on potential 2024 fallout from the handling of the Israel-Hamas war. And look at the highlighted quote there. He, quote, he did what he thought was right, one Democrat consultant said. Just amazing. Let's read another headline here. This one here. Donald Trump takes significant polling lead over Biden in presidential race. And it's something like 7 or 8 sort of close states, battleground states that Donald Trump is leading in. All right, so this one and this one. All right, now let's get to two of the longer videos about this topic, and then we can move on. Actually, this might be the only one. Let's see. Let's listen.
The Iowa caucuses are less than a month away, marking the first time primary voters will get to weigh in on their party's nominee for the White House. As things stand right now, a Biden-Trump rematch is on the horizon, and according to new polling, that could spell trouble for President Biden. A survey by Morning Consult and Bloomberg of a hypothetical 2024 election matchup shows Donald Trump narrowly beating Biden in 7 swing states. That same poll reveals that Biden is losing support from a key constituency, Black voters.
You might look at that and go, what do you mean? 62% from Black voters, that's a great number. Not for the Democratic Party, who has not won the majority of the white vote in decades. So they need all the other people, especially Black people, Hispanics. This is why they're so dependent on us. So let's let it continue here.
With only 62% saying they would vote for the president. Now, 62% sounds like a lot, right? Well, let me put that number into perspective. In 2020, President Biden won 87% of the Black vote. A slide in Black support is deeply concerning because every Democrat elected president has needed a coalition of voters to win the White House. And here's why. No Democrat running for president has won the White House, the white vote since 1964. Because of that, African-American voters have been vital to Democrats' presidential ambitions. Because Black women are the most loyal Democratic voters, they are considered the bedrock of the party. But there's now a growing effort to shore up the support of Black men. This week at the White House, Biden's aides met with several influential Democratic Black men to discuss how to address the decline in the president's popularity among such a crucial group of voters. Joining me now, one of the attendees at the meeting, Jamie Harrison, chairman.
Like, what is the use if you're really trying to figure out how do I reach Black men, Black vote, or any vote? Like, why would you bring on a Kool-Aid drinking Uncle Tom as the Black representative? Like, are you trying to get ideas from a Black person who's already on your team? That doesn't make sense to me. It seems to me you need to go out and get people who are saying, I'm not voting for you. Now tell me why and what can we do to get you to vote? That seems to me the more logical thing that should be done here. But of course they bring on this Negro servant right here. Just the sight of his face.
Of the Democratic National Committee. Chairman Harrison, welcome back.
Thank you, Jonathan. Merry Christmas, happy holidays.
Thank you. Same to you. So what did you discuss at this meeting?
Well, we discussed the African-American vote, the importance of the African-American vote. We discussed the importance of making sure that African-Americans understand the policies that this administration have done and how they have impacted this community. Jonathan, when you think about it, just take the judiciary, for example.
It is so bizarre to me that these talking heads, it's such ridiculous because what they say, because let me let them play, and Nick is be joining in just a second. You put yourself in it whenever you're ready, sir. This one part I want to
understand the policies that this administration have done and how they have impacted this community.
So we have policies, apparently, Nick, and I know you're in the background, I know you can hear me. We have policies where good shit is happening to us, but we don't know. We you know what I mean? Like money's falling from the sky, and we're just like, what's happening? You know what I'm saying? Like it's so preposterous. This sort of thinking that a lot of establishment figures seem to have is just ridiculous. Let's listen a little more before we move to the next one.
Jonathan, when you think about it, just take the judiciary, for example. Joe Biden has appointed 160 judges. Of that 160 judges, 50 of them are Black. 50 Black judges, lifetime.
Talking about doing something for the Black community and then your answer is individual Black people, to me is a reflection of white supremacy. Do you understand? And if we're still 400 or 500 years after, we're still talking about the first Black person, do you understand that's an indication that this is a white supremacy society? If we're still celebrating first Black shit, you know how ridiculous that is in 2020? What's up, Nick? It's absurd to say that 100, and this is what's weird, Nick. Not that 150, we gave 150 families homes. Not that. 150, what did he say? 150 donors or 100 and, hang on a second here. Let's see what he says.
Biden has appointed 160 judges.
160 judges. That's like saying Joe Biden appointed 10 Black police chiefs. How does that help? How does that help the Black community? How does judges that's going to put us in jail help the Black community? But go ahead, Nick.
You know the Democratic Party and Biden is weak on the Black agenda when they keep pointing to representation politics as their accomplishments. I remember the article we covered quite some time ago when they're like, we don't know why Black Americans are turning against Biden. Look at all these accomplishments, and among them was we anointed Kamala Harris as vice president. We had Ketanji Brown Jackson, and I'm like, okay, you essentially admitting you have done nothing for us then. Ketanji Brown Jackson, during the trial, said she's not an activist. She's here to interpret the laws as they are read on the book, CJ. That is what she said in order to get the white, moderate, liberal vote to support her. So why would the Black community celebrate a person that is willing to enforce the laws written by harsh white supremacists? Why would anyone support someone who climbed the ranks in a corporate ladder, which that's what all the judges are? That's why I don't allow judiciaries to influence my vote. Because people are like, well, you don't want the Republicans to take over the courts. Well, I don't trust Democrats either. They sided with big oil against indigenous Americans. They have done multiple rulings against the working class, the same way that Ketanji Brown Jackson did. And she said multiple times during her confirmation hearing that she's not here to do anything for anyone. She's not here to advocate for Black people. She's here just to interpret the law written by colonialists. But go ahead, CJ.
Yeah, I am rounding out this particular segment. We're going to get to the John Fetterman part and some other small, very short headline stories. But this guy says even more ridiculous shit. Let's listen to maybe another 90 seconds, and then we'll close this part of the segment.
Of that 160 judges, 50 of them are Black. 50 Black judges, lifetime appointments, all in their 40s and their 50s, will have a lifetime impact on our judiciary in this country. We've seen the lowest unemployment rate in the Black community in history. We've seen the record job creation in the Black community.
Now, record job creation, record employment, but you know what else went up, Nick? We just broke the record for homelessness. It has increased 12%. And guess who's the vast majority, Nick, of those new numbers? Black people. But you have this freaking clown on here trying to tote some sort of, Biden economics. It is truly.
I covered before, and they'll never tell you this, but it's like Black unemployment. Let's see if I can find the article. I covered it quite a long time ago. Like Black people made like 91% of the unemployment. Let's see if I can find it. Let me see if I can find that receipt. But the point here it is. Here's the article I was referring to. I don't want to. You guys know I don't want to just say shit. I always like to show you guys receipts. So here's what I was referring to. Black workers in the U.S. account for 90% of the recent rise in unemployment. So, CJ, you see how they just make shit up? This is from July. So when it comes to the economy, when people talk about how bad the economy is, you know who's impacted the most? Do you think white suburban America is impacted by this? No, it's Black America. We are the ones who drive the trends the same way we was the people who drove the trends in 2008. But Democrats and Negro survivors like Jamie Harris is here to tell Black people who have discontent with their system right now, come on, man. Democrats is the best way to go. This mediocrity and you guys should be used to. You guys should be thankful for the mediocrity that you're living in. In the culture of low expectations that liberals want Black Americans to live in. So that's my receipt. I'll pass it back to you, CJ.
Yeah, and just to kind of talk, because this is,
and that was Bloomberg, guys. By the way, that's not like a left wing site. That was Bloomberg that's reporting that 90%. Let me read again. Yeah, Black workers in the U.S. account for 90% of the recent rise in unemployment. That is Bloomberg. That is not Black Agenda Report. That's not a radical left outlet. So all these liberals and they won't pretend that the economy is working for Black America is absolutely is not. Another reason why class is tied to race. You don't separate race and class. They're intentionally they're intertwined. I know you covered the article where AOC, she in a shit liberty way, when she's like, I don't like Bernie bros. The left is misogynistic because they keep undermining the relationship between race and class. They put class above race. And I'm like, and you said it perfectly during your string because I was going to cover it in a longer version of it. There's no socialist that will ever say that. Never. The argument that I have, there's like multiple variations. There are a lot of socialists who value class above all, but then there's the Black Panther style Marxist Leninists who we like the idea that our race is separate from our class structure is absurd. It's absurd. And no one will ever say that you should pay attention to race more than class. No Black Marxist would say any other of the exchange. We have AOC that that essentially uses race reductionism in order to hamper working class movements. And one last thing I'll say, I don't want to hijack the segment too much.
No, go ahead. You.
One more thing during that segment, you kind of briefly touched on what I found funny about the AOC story. AOC says one of the moments that made her turn on the working class left, the people who she claims she support, was the Joe Rogan interview with Bernie Sanders. Did you see that part of the article?
Yeah.
Where she said it was during the Joe Rogan interview. The podcasts that have misogynistic right wingers. You mean a guy who has different people on from different political spectrums? That is what a socialist is condemning? That's absolutely not what we should be doing. And this is a guy who supported, endorsed Bernie during the primary. And you guys know, you guys heard me criticize Rogan a lot of times, but it is absolutely not a criticism. A platforming Bernie, she viewed as a bad thing. You guys don't think she's an op that's here to give the left and the working class movement bad advice on purpose? She's offended that someone went on the most popular podcast in America and preached Democrat socialist ideas. How absurd is that? But anyway, I'll pass back to you, CJ. I don't want to hijack your too much.
No, that was great information to insert. I do want to piggyback or kind of take what Jamie, I think, what's his name? I forget. Jamie Harrison, I think that's his name. In the previous video when he's talking about how, all these things are up for the economy, but they're missing this point about the homeless population and how rent is too high. And I do want to kind of insert this receipt. It's about 90 seconds I want to play of this video where they talk about the increase in homelessness. And understand, this is 12%. That 12% increase puts us at a new record high. The sheer number of homeless people, Nick, has never been at this number ever. We have reached a new high, reached a new low, in other words. Let's listen to this video, and then I have the matching headline and article to go with it. Let's listen.
The number of people experiencing homelessness in the United States has increased to its highest level ever. 653,000 people are homeless right now. That's according to a Housing and Urban Development report. Doug Schenkelberg.
Nick, 623,000 people don't have homes. There's millions of homes that are just sitting empty. This is when we're talking about socialism, this is key to understand. It's key to understand this, because these empty houses are empty because of exchange value. You have exchange value and user value. User value means what you use, that's the value of it. You personally using something. Exchange value is what's the value of something that I can sell. What socialists want to do is get rid of exchange value. Then those homes wouldn't be constructed to sell. They would be constructed specifically for people to live. User value only. Now, who does it hurt to get rid of the exchange value? Capitalists want to tell you it's you going to be hurt. It's them that's going to be hurt. You don't own shit. They own it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
go ahead if you wanted to chime in. If not, I'll play the video.
No, that's what people need to remember, and we gotta repeat this as often as possible. We gotta tell people you're not a capitalist. You're an exploited worker. Like people think that challenging and threatening the capitalist power structure. For example, if we privatize the oil fields, if we privatize and nationalize the banks, people think that's going to impact them. Like people think they're going to lose power. In America, they're brainwashed thinking that they're going to lose power under socialist rule. The exact opposite. We'll bring the capitalist power structure to heel. You're going to have your property. There's nothing that you own that we need for the state. We are saying that you can't own an oil field. You can't own the healthcare industry. You can't own the housing industry that drives up housing prices. So China is going through a market socialist transition right now. A lot of people criticize them for not being full communists. But one thing they have control of is the housing market because they nationalized the banks. This is why they got a lot of praise from socialists around the world, because they tuned their central planning model around a centralized model that's based on lessening the burden on the working class people. So because they own the banks, because China owned the banks, they offer very low interest rate loans on houses. That allow them to control rent prices. That's why China average rent is around $500 compared to ours, which is way, way higher. I don't know those are on top of our head, but it's like 3 times lower in China, the rent prices. Why? Because they have a smarter central planning model where they say, hey, capitalists, you're not going to be in charge of fucking real estate. Landlords, not a thing. Mao was right. He said landlords not going to be a thing. So we drove down the prices of houses because we own the banks. That's why we don't have they don't have the massive amount of homelessness in China that we do, because they don't have a system of anarchy where capitalists are in charge of housing, like landlords and real estate development companies. That's an absurd model. And I want to debate and I have a conversation with anyone on this to explain to me the benefit of having a middleman that is, their only goal is not to increase the quality of your housing. Their goal is to increase the profit, CJ. So if their goal is to increase the profit and they have to have never-ending expansion, increasing the profits, what does that mean for the renter and the tenants? Right. That their housing prices and the rents will naturally go up. So what we see in America, I'll pass to you, I don't want to write too much. I don't remember my original point, to be honest. But, people think that rising of rents is an accident in this country. No, it's not. That's what happens when you give away in an anarchist capitalist system the central planning model of housing, the same way we gave the central planning model of healthcare away to capitalists. So what is their goal? To increase profits. That is what they did. That's why during COVID, you have big pharma CEOs making record profits. And this will be my last point, because once again, I don't remember my original point. And the first thing I'm going to bring up when the inevitable debate, because people been scared, like I'm down. Like if any right winger want to invite me on to talk about this stuff, I've always had an open invite on this. Because right-wing capitalists distrust Moderna and Pfizer, which I find interesting, CJ. Because do they know that Moderna and Pfizer are capitalist entities? Mm-hmm. Do they know the reason why they distrust the vaccine? The reason why they distrust, and I explained this on the Jimmy Dore show, the reason why people distrust the vaccine is because capitalists and big pharma has more power than the government. When capital has more power than the central planning model of your society, that breeds corruption. You guys understand? So when people view vaccines, when they view the health decisions that the government are making, they view it with distrust. Mm-hmm. Why do they view it with distrust, CJ? Because they feel like they're working for Bill Gates. That's the criticism you hear from Jimmy Dore and all the right-wing commentary against the vaccines. Oh, they are pushing vaccines in order to increase big pharma profit, which was true. They were making $1,000 per second. So if anything is based on profit, why would they make decisions in the best interest of public health? That's why people distrust the vaccines, because why? Capital is stronger than the government. So if the government in a central planning model that is coherent, like a socialist model, for example, and we seize the means of production and we control the healthcare system, that distrust won't exist, because you're like, oh my God, I don't trust the vaccines. This person making profit. Who? There's no billionaire there. You know what I mean? But I shut up now. I went on a rant that was kind of incoherent, but go ahead, CJ.
No. We need those rants, and make sure you hit that like button. We're gonna close this and get to the next one. I'm gonna go right into the next segment right after this. But let me play a little bit more to talk about, to close this increase in a record level of homelessness.
Is the executive director of Chicago Coalition for the Homeless. He joins us now to talk about the increase in numbers and some of the causes. Doug, thank you so much for talking to us. This is so disturbing, so upsetting. I mean, and at Christmas time, especially, to hear something like this. How did it rise to this level? What, 12% more over the past few years, right?
Yeah, so just in the last year, we saw a 12% rise according to this new data. And what we know is that the cost of housing is really driving that increase. With inflation, housing.
Nick, how on earth are you able to claim that capitalism is a success when you have over a 500,000 people without homes? It doesn't make any sense. This is the only country where you can literally have the opposite going on, but they're still able to claim it. And I'll give you an example. Freedom, democracy. How are you able to claim that as you're committing a genocide and have enslaved people? How's that? But that's what they're doing. But let's continue. And then I want to bring up this article and then move on to student loan payments.
And we see that the number of people experiencing homelessness has gone up. And it looks similar to the data that we create through our estimate every year, where we have a slightly more broad definition of homelessness, where we're looking at people who are doubled up or couch surfing. And we're seeing similar trends.
And that's what we should be doing. And I love that they did that. They didn't just say, you who are on the street. They said, no. We're counting people who they're not on the street because they know somebody that they can stay with. If they didn't know that person, they would be on the street, and that person should be counted under the under the homelessness, maybe not unhoused. They're housed, but they're homeless, if you understand the point. I do want to bring up now this article headline. It's on the. Go ahead, Nick, if you were going to chime in.
No, I'm still here.
Okay, right on. This one from the AP. This is how I initially found out about the story. U.S. homelessness up 12% to highest reported levels as rents soar and coronavirus pandemic aid lapses. Now, I must say this because I forgot to say it when you were talking about the vaccinations. YouTube, we believe in the vaccinations. We think it's the greatest thing in the world. We have to make these claims anytime we just say the word. We just want to make sure the YouTube censors don't pick that up and do something bad to us. But anyway, so not only is the population has gone, homelessness population has gone up, but it's due to rent soaring and pandemic aid collapsing. And the article, I'm not going to read all of it, but it speaks to how people were being able to fill this gap with that pandemic aid. And when that was taken, that coupled with what you already spoke to, Nick, rent prices literally going up because of the capitalist, I forget what you call it, but the capitalist mode of production. But let me just read a little bit of this article. The United States experienced a dramatic 12% increase in homelessness to its highest reported levels as soaring rents and a decline in pandemic assistance combined to put housing out of reach for more Americans. About 653,000 people were homeless, the most the country has seen began since using the yearly. I'm sorry, let me say that again. The most since the country began using the yearly point in time survey in 2017. The total in the January count represents an increase of about 70,000 people, Nick. 70, fucking incredible. And another little tidbit of information that I'm not going to read, but I can still show you. California is one of the top where you're seeing a lot of that growth is happening in California and in other like Florida, where the weather allows for a larger homeless population. Less rainy days mean is less harsh conditions for people who are living outside. I wanted to zero in on this part, and then I'll close this article. People who identify as Black make up about 13% of the U.S. population, but comprise 37%, Nick, of all people experiencing homelessness. So tell me again how class and race is not one and the same for us. Explain that again to me.
We are just under 40% of this population. We are 60% of the civil asset forfeiture cases in the country. So that's the state capitalist sponsored program where the government, without due process, seizes the wealth of the proletariat. Like, we need to be very clear about what the policies in our country actually are. That's what it is. So one of the reasons why Black wealth and the Black income inequality gap has increased since the civil rights era is because of policies like civil asset forfeiture, was capitalists weaponizing interest rates against Black Americans. That's why it's always ridiculous when white Americans say, oh, well, slavery was 200 years ago. You want reparations for that? Like, you guys have no idea the depths of the crimes, the financial crimes that our community has suffered through. CJ, anything else you want to add to that segment? I have one segment I want to do quickly before Wyatt get here, but feel free to take your time. Go ahead, CJ, if you have
that was my final word. So if you want to go right into it, go ahead before we get
so this
here. Go ahead.
So this shouldn't be too long. I'm interested to see what Wyatt says about this. He should be rolling in. He's scheduled to come at 2 p.m. Eastern time. So he will be joining us very soon. Always good to have Wyatt on the show. We're gonna have a fun time roasting the unhinged RFK Jr., who said Palestinians are pampered. If Palestinians or if anyone is pampered, what does that make Israelis and Zionists who can't even fight their own wars? They can't fight their own wars, but they had audacity to call other people pampered. But first, I want to get to, because I want to get CJ's thought on this. Is you kind of covered it earlier. There's a panic going on. There's an open psyop where they're trying to recruit Black Americans on the Zionist project. So one thing that was missing for the discourse for quite some time, and the only reason they are responding to it is because it's based on the story that you covered, CJ, is Biden fracturing the coalition. That's why this flows perfectly based on what you was covering. The Biden fracturing the coalition and Black Americans abandoning Biden with Muslim Americans at the rate they are, it forced them to acknowledge a point they did not. They've been trying to make this about an age thing, and that's smart. Why, CJ? Because boomers have a ton of anger for some reason about younger generations.
They'll be mad. They're like, those young whippersnappers, they hate us. But go ahead.
So our enemies are smart. It was a good strategy because boomers who've been complaining about their own children generation for whatever reason, my entire life, every article since the 90s to 2000s, they still complaining about the fucking millennials. So the Zionists are smart to weaponize that. So they decided to make it an age thing. That's where the rise of anti-Semitism on college campuses came from. They wanted to paint, and you covered earlier, the anti-Semitism generation. Our two segments flow perfectly together, CJ. The anti-Semitism generation. And this is a clear psyop. This is going to be exposed by the Gray Zone. They have a great article. Another situation where I fucking called it. Why I told you guys that it was a psyop, and the Gray Zone got the receipts on that. Now, the reason why they was making this psyop was because they were trying to pit the older generation against the younger, and it worked. That's why boomers inherently support Zionism, because they're like, them fucking kids, fucking kill the Palestinians, fuck the kids. You know what I mean? That's like 70% of the boomers. But what I point out, and I know a lot of people don't want to point this out. I want a few people to point this out is, you guys know the gap between the black and white support is as substantial as the gap between young and old. So CJ and audience, I'm asking you guys this question. Isn't it interesting? And do you guys think it's a coincidence that liberals are leaning towards the ageism debate versus reconciling why the base that they find themselves in solidarity with disagree with them on an issue that is so important? So the liberal who believe that Trump is the most unique evil and the most unique fascist that this country's ever seen, CJ, why don't they ever reconcile the fact that they agree with said fascists on a very important issue? Trump is a fascist. Trump is going to be the end of our democracy, but we agree with him on every single important point. You guys see how these things don't add up, and a lot of liberals who are good faith are going through some shit. Like I said, in the very beginning of post-October 7 coverage, they're going through this some shit. Now, that was a long preface to explain that liberals' preference to discussing the age difference, they won't have it that way because black people are coming out so strongly against the genocide of Gaza and occupation and colonialism that now they got to find a way to reconcile and have a conversation, a very inconvenient conversation in a gentle way. Ain't been noticing these pokes and these prods. The more people who the outright open people about it are like, come on, black Americans, I pretended to support Black Lives Matter. I put the hashtag in my profile. I even wore a Black Lives Matter mask. Now you guys are turning against us. Now we support a genocide. How dare you? CJ, you know how bad it is when they are losing the black church?
Wow, I didn't see this, so this is news.
Yeah, I was hiding this from you, CJ. There's certain things I try to hide from you because I want to get your raw reaction. So
that's
you know how bad
Nick.
it is?
You mean Nick? If you're losing the black church, let me tell you, you're losing the black church. You're using my mom's vote.
Yeah, that's
my mom
crazy.
is part of the black church vote. So if you losing her, man, that's like me showing up to my mom's house and my mom saying "fuck Biden." I'll be like, "What?" Go ahead,
Bro. I could write another article explaining to you guys the fraudulence of the black church. One of the things that drove me away because the black church support our oppressors. They always, like, you guys know, in history, you don't cover this. I'm a history nerd. That the civil rights era, you know, the same way you see like internal strife on the black left, right? People believe that the civil rights movement was like a kumbaya kind of shit. No, it absolutely was not, fam. There was a ton of internal drama and fighting among the civil rights movement. There were a lot of conservative black people who didn't want to go too far. There were black people that was condemning MLK as a crazy radical. I'm not pretending it's anywhere near the majority, but there's a lot of.
I did a video. There's an "I Am the Revolution" video. I have video content where you see them. They think Martin Luther King was a damn radical. Like, black people are saying this. Of course, there were black people who had a little bit of cash, though. But go ahead.
Yep. And where do you guys think that came from? I'm not saying all of it did, but a lot of it came from pressures in the black church who favor a more conservative politics in general. I will never understand why they follow the gods of their people who converted their ancestors as slaves. Never understood that. But, you know, that mindset tend to breed people who promote the establishment. That's why the black church, they do drives to get people to support war criminals like Joe Biden. The black church often teams, and this is not that I had to reconcile it with growing up as a teenager. The black church team with white evangelicals all the time on social issues. It's one of the things that white liberals don't want to talk about because they don't want to piss off the black church. The point being, the black church is not anywhere near any bastion. And this is something that I say that could piss people off, but no one in my life been able to prove me wrong. They've been one of my truths that I try to hold back. I don't want to hurt people's feelings, but if you get me started, I will hurt your feelings. Nick, why don't you go to church? Because these motherfuckers turn to you guys and colonize your mind. I don't want to get into it because I try not to offend people.
Yeah, I feel the same way. One day we'll do it in a private video just for us and don't show nobody.
I explained to you guys before.
They ain't gonna like that shit. They ain't gonna like that stream. I'm telling you, because I got a lot to say on that shit.
I explained to you guys before. I had my edgy teenage atheist phase. Growing up in a religious family, going back, and then I realized, especially as I got more class consciousness, that's not a good way to go about things. Being like the edgy atheist, you know what I mean? Because you don't want to, because life is hard, fam. Like I used to be like, oh my god, I can't believe you guys believe in this shit. This is crazy. I'm like, man, bro, life is hard. As I grew up, I've been through life, bro. People need to believe shit. I realized, like, man, I was wrong to attack people and their belief, because people belief in something is very important, very powerful, considering what we go through in our life. Even though I don't personally believe, I don't believe in stories, I can see why it benefits people, especially if it leads them to have good beliefs and do good things.
Right.
Christians on the side, like Dr. Cornel West, that is a religious man I can respect because he uses religion to advocate for good things. But the reality is, and I will never stop this critique because it's separate from attacking people's faith. Because I'm talking about the reality of the situation. The reality is that Dr. Cornel West is rare.
Yeah.
The reality is Black church leaders side with establishment and screw over our community countless times. So that was a long previous say, if you losing them, you are fucked, fam.
Yeah, you
so
are.
People only listening, I'll read a headline because I don't know if I read out loud yet. Black church leaders on the fence on Biden endorsement amid Israel-Gaza war. Fam, that is crazy. Because every election, you know who's their tap dancing? I'm gonna tell you in a Negro spiritual way why we support the Democratic Party, support our president. Yeah, I'm a screaming charismatic pastor. I got all the chicks on the side. You know what I mean? I got very charismatic. I'm here to tell you why you should vote for Joe Biden. That's what all the churches do. So even they are like, I don't know about this one, fam. Look at this. Longtime Democratic voting bloc devastated by U.S. foreign policy, funding wars where people of color are being killed. You see why this is a very inconvenient conversation for liberals, CJ, who pretend to be woke? How can you reconcile the fact that you joining and locking hands with Lauren Ingram and Sean Hannity on this issue, and people of color, the people who you claim you represent, see through this, see through colonialism, see through genocide. That's why they keep talking about anti-Semitism on college campuses. Look at the young people. The young people are anti-Semites because they can't pretend they're fighting for a community that disagrees with them on a policy that is this important. CJ. And Wyatt, I see you in the background. Give me a thumbs up whenever you're ready. I'm going to bring you here very soon. Wyatt Reed, good friend of the show. Gray Zone has a great article confirming my suspicions that the anti-Semitism on college campus PSYOP is exactly that. Remember, CJ, I called it from day one. And people like Gray Zone, fantastic reporters like Gray Zone, they are there to verify my suspicions. That's what I have a suspicion on something. And then people like the Gray Zone or Black Agenda Report, they will confirm it with the report. I'm like, I knew it. Anyway, we'll get to that very soon because it's tied to this. Let
me this somebody made this comment. It says, if Palestinians' hate for Jews was as intense as KK hate for blacks, would you still? So the comparison is so off, because I wouldn't say Jews, I would say Zionists. If Palestinians hate for Zionists, because they don't hate all Jews. They hate the people who are trying to take their homes by force and murdering their kids. Those are Zionists. Those aren't Jews that are doing that. Those are Zionists that are doing that. And also in your comparison, the KKK did, like, the Palestinians didn't do anything to Jews like the KKKs did something to blacks. So this is not a apples for apples comparison. I just wanted to say that, but go ahead, finish.
And I am of the position, and it's always been my position. I had a long time viral tweet back in the day before my account blew up. Well, I said it's very healthy to hate your oppressors. Decolonize your mind. They want you to love your oppressors. They want you to turn to the other cheek when they never do the same. It's very healthy to hate the people that are responsible for destroying your generational wealth, who inflicted state violence upon your family. It is not only admirable, it's not only just, it's something that is healthy. Because hating your oppressors is self-love. The people who hate themselves the most are the people who apologize for crimes against themselves because they believe that people deserved it. So if you are a Palestinian who hate your colonizers, you hate your Zionist colonizers, I am with you. Because that energy you translate to revolutionary action. So let me read the headline. I'll bring you in, Wyatt. I'll go a little bit longer, but I'll just read the headline here. Black American solidarity with Palestinians is rising. Oh my God. Oh no, we losing them. We losing them. We're doing a little bit too much genocide. We lose them. Black American solidarity with Palestinians is rising and testing long-standing ties to Jewish allies. Oh, here we go again. Here we go again. You guys know what the Zionists love more than anything else is stealing the identity of Palestinians. Zionism is about stealing the identity of and the culture of Palestinians. So I have done how many segments, CJ? How many explanations? I brought on groups, experts that explain the long-standing solidarity. I had Nicole Mandela on. The Black Panthers had a long-standing solidarity with the Palestinians. And the Zionists are trying to rob that from the Palestinians as well. Now they're rewriting history, CJ. Now they're going to rewrite history. Well, oh my God, yeah, it was the Zionists who was standing with the civil rights era, standing with Black people during civil rights. And my last thoughts on this, you guys know who was the number one enemy of the civil rights movement? Evangelical Christians who power the American Zionist Project. They was the number one enemy of the civil rights movement. So you have ranked Zionists that rewatching history. The progressive Jews, like our friends at the Grave Zone, like Max Blumenthal, Dan Cohen, and many others, they were the people who stood in solidarity with Black Americans, with progressive Jews. The same progressive Jews that are called fake Jews by the same evangelical Christians. So you guys see how maliciously they're trying to rewrite history about this? They were trying to pretend it was the Jews, the Zionist Jews that was standing with Black Americans. As you have the evangelical Zionist right that is banning racial struggle in classrooms right now. Meanwhile, I'm going to bring my guests in. I'm actually interested in having your thoughts on this as well, right? This is an amazing investigative reporter, does great work at the Grave Zone. Always love having you on. Welcome to our friend, Wyatt Reed. How you doing, man?
What's up, Wyatt?
I'm all right. Good to see you guys. How are you guys doing?
Good.
Yeah, it's good to have you back on the show.
Always.
And I just want to get your reaction because we're going to cover your article regarding anti-Semitism, because I believe these two things are connected because they were shifting the conversation against regarding colonialism and trying to make it a generational war. Like that's what people love: Boomer versus Gen Z, Millennials versus Boomers. But it always was a Black and decolonization movement regarding Israel-Palestine. That's what I acknowledged very early. So I just want your general reaction. I know you watch a little bit of this. This PSYOP trying to recruit Black Americans to the Zionist Project. And welcome to the show once again, Wyatt. And then we can move on.
Yeah, thanks again. And what you're describing, it's not new. Honestly, if we can pull that headline back up, I wanted to mention something about it because there's kind of an unexamined sort of claim. No worries. I actually really I like this. No, the one after. Yes, perfect. Yeah. I like this headline because the unspoken assertion here, right, is that if you stand in solidarity with Palestinians, that is somehow like necessarily going to create problems with Jews. That basically anyone standing in solidarity will necessarily test your ties with Jews, which is just a wild premise that any form of Palestinian solidarity is basically inherently anti-Semitic. That's kind of what this headline says without saying it.
Yeah,
So I just wanted. Yeah, I just wanted to point that out, just in terms of, because that's like it's so glaring to me once you think about it. It's like you're testing and then you're right. You start to think about long-standing ties. Well, I mean, we know about, for example, MLK. Members of his family have frequently been kind of trotted out by the Zionist lobby to kind of have black community leaders to point to be like, oh well, if this guy said it, obviously he speaks on with a moral authority of all of Black America. And that's kind of been the long-term Zionist lobbying strategy was, we'll get a few people, we'll get some Bayard Rustins here and there, we'll get the NAACP, and we're going to, invite them to some fancy dinners, and we're going to talk a lot of pablum about our shared persecution, even though we really don't have anything like the same experience, especially in modern day America. And then, that'll be enough, because there's no one else doing anything on the other side to just keep these people off our backs for a while, right? And that's kind of been the attitude that the Israeli lobby has always had towards Black America. And you saw this kind of bubble over in 2014. You saw this bubble over when BLM kind of became a flashpoint, and you would see sort of the same kind of Palestinian solidarity that had always been pretty popular among like Black activist circles. You saw that come out again. And then you saw this same cycle that we're now seeing now, where it's like, oh, we saw a bunch of think pieces worried about, oh, what does this mean about, Black Jewish ties, that all of a sudden these activists are saying nice things about Palestinians, and they're drawing conclusions, they're drawing connections between their treatment here and the treatment of Palestinians in Israel, and the fact that so many of the police that are brutalizing people here learned how to do that from Israeli cops on special trips, and vice versa, right? They're collaborating, they're colluding to do effectively long-term the same thing, which is learn how to brutalize a population that does not want you there, and to just act like, run roughshod over them, treat them like they're not there, and keep them silent the whole time. And that was, that was the name of the game, and it worked for a very long time. Now it's not working. And so you're seeing these kind of crocodile tears. You're seeing these kinds of hand wringing and moaning and whining about, oh, all this alleged anti-Semitism. Of course, no one can ever produce any evidence of any, right? Every time you hear about some horrible story of like, oh, they called that girl. There was a recent one. They said some girl who's protesting called Jewish students a kike, which is like a really very, very bad thing to call a Jewish person. And then people look back at this video, and it got tens of thousands of likes before, all these Zionists really losing their minds, totally convinced, that Glasnost is right around the corner. And then people start to realize, oh, she's just saying like. She's not saying, she's saying like.
Yeah,
that's what she's saying in the video. Right, and it was like every single video that came out that accused that insisted there was some kind of mass anti-Semitic event. This kept happening. This has kept happening. There's not a single video that I have seen that hasn't yet to be debunked that actually shows an act of like mass anti-Semitism, an act of more than one deranged person doing something. A collective response from any of these protests. I haven't seen a single one. And you know why I think that matters is because if that existed, we would have been watching it for the past 2 months, nonstop. It would have been played over and over and over again on every single news channel. So it doesn't exist. So what do we have? And we can bring up my article now if you want to, because this kind of relates to it, right? What do we have instead of a bunch of evidence of anti-Semitism? Because we have this it's like a problem without any solutions and any real indicators, any symptoms. We're just supposed to take these people's word for it that there's this big anti-Semitism crisis.
And Wyatt,
the anti-Semitism crisis. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm gonna pass right to you. But CJ, do you remember her? CJ, do you remember her?
Yes.
Damn, I called it. Remember what I said? I told you guys, like, I said I want to admit if I'm wrong here, but I'm calling it right now. She's a fucking Mossad agent. She's a state agent. She's doing propaganda. There's no way they just found these students. So I'm glad you did this. Wyatt. I knew there was some fucking psyop going on. So here's the subheadline. I'll pass it back to you so you can explain more in detail. No need to read the article when you're here, but I'll just read the subheadline. Registered Israeli foreign agent driving contrived campus anti-Semitism campus, and I seen her everywhere, and I fucking knew it. Why? Do you want to explain a little bit more? And you can continue your thoughts earlier as well.
For sure. Well, so this woman, this is Bella Engber. She is the co-president of the Students Supporting Israel group at New York University, NYU, the most expensive university in the world, I believe, the most expensive private school anywhere in the world, as far as I'm aware. She was pretty central. She is the face of the new lawsuit coming out accusing NYU of harboring anti-Semitism, of having, quote, deliberate indifference to the plight of these poor, oppressed, extraordinarily wealthy young Jewish students. So she is the face of the NYU chapter. The face of the Penn lawsuit is a young man by the name of Eyal Yacobi, an Israeli-American senior. Both of them were trotted out by Republican leadership.
I think this is what you're talking about, right? Let me pull this up.
Yes, that's he is. You can get a sense. He looks a man who is no stranger to systemic oppression. That is certainly a man who grew up on the wrong side of the tracks. You can tell it.
These people are obviously the most privileged people in America. And remember a few weeks ago the segments we covered when they brought
Yes, I was just going to bring that up.
And they was like, oh my God, we're so sorry you're going through this. We're sorry you're going through this trauma. People don't understand the pressures you're going through. These are the most privileged people in America, as Wyatt is discussing here. So this is one of the people you were discussing here, right?
Yep. So these are guys. Okay, sure, go ahead.
Sorry, Wyatt, but I'm gonna play this because this is new. This is another one. And the reason why I picked the newest version of this, because you can find this story every day. Like, and this is why this is something I focused on. I'm glad that you guys did this expose on the gray zone, because to me, the Zionist project in Israel, they are the number one threat to the civil liberties of Americans.
Yeah.
They are. Is it exporting or importing? Are Zionists exporting their ideology? Because I've been like, are they exporting their ideology, or are the Zionists importing it? I don't know, but you guys get it. They're exporting or importing their fascist ideology into the United States, and the American right, who say they care about America first, who were virtue signaling or fighting over liberal attempts at cracking down at free speech. They are more than happy to allow fascist Zionists who are not loyal to the United States to fight against our freedom of speech and our constitutional rights. So I just want to play a little bit of this. We're not going to watch the whole thing. I don't want to spend too much time on this segment in general. I just want to get your reaction, because it's just one of many segments that we've seen of them stoking this fake fucking crisis. And I want to get your reaction. Feel free to interrupt anytime if you want to say anything.
Spreads across American college campuses, especially anti-Semitism spreads across American college campuses, especially in the once elite Ivy League. Harvard is now seeing a nearly 20% dip in early admissions applications.
Once elite. I like that how they snuck that in there. The once elite Ivy League school. Just 2 weeks ago, everyone took a poll and decided, you know what? It's actually, Liberty College that's the new top. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
they just decided 2 months ago that, because this happened, and this
is not regular admission. This is
early
people,
admission.
The teacher's pets that send their shit in way early. They're talking about those people haven't sent it in. And understand, propaganda uses percentages, because if they were to put the raw number, you'll realize this is not really that big of an increase. For example, 17%. If you were to take early, how many applications you think they would? You're talking about in the thousands. You're talking about 17% is something like maybe 50. You know what I'm saying? Like 50 less than normal. So what they're doing is taking a baseline of a high baseline and comparing it to down. When admissions fluctuate, the amount of people that are applying fluctuates every year. They're never the same year to year. I only know this because at Cal State Long Beach, I worked in the international admissions office for 2 years. So I know this part, but go ahead.
Well, that's all totally right. And just to kind of rein it in a little bit, I mean, we're talking about some of the most privileged people on planet Earth. It really doesn't get much more privilege. They are so privileged that this to them feels like the most traumatic event of their lives, apparently, right? And so what did this guy say, right? And I included this in the story. A.L. Jacoby specifically, right? So this guy who's by the way calling for like a complete and total shutdown on the free speech of his
that's what they're asking for
fellow students. He said during COVID, strict guidelines governed everything from class attendance to graduation walks. But now, when students and faculty defy policies to intimidate Jewish students, where is the same resolute enforcement? So he basically, I guess he wants to like shut them in their dorms or something, and not let them leave. But so you go through this lawsuit, and what is the anti-Semitism that he says? Well, he says that people around him yelled anti-Semitic slurs. Well, what are the anti-Semitic slurs? Well, two of them are Intifada Revolution, and another one is From the River to the Sea. These are the anti-Semitic slurs that he lists. Another incident which is described, but not obviously documented, as none of the alleged actually anti-Semitic incidents, the actually anti-Semitic incidents that they claim happened, none of them, weirdly enough, were documented. So you basically have to take their word for it throughout this entire court complaint. And so
I didn't cover this story the way I did recklessly, fam. Like when this story first hit, I was like, all right, okay, what are your guys' examples of anti-Semitism? I legitimately was like, I want to see what they're saying. And everything they were saying exactly what you listed. It was like hearsay. Oh, this student said something that made me uncomfortable, or it will be something that was later debunked. You know what I mean?
Also, I didn't call the cops. I didn't file a police report. There's no evidence that it ever happened. But just trust me, take my word about it. Would I lie? Like that's. And so, okay, so here's what he says. Here's the most like awful experience that he describes in this lawsuit. 84-page lawsuit, by the way. It's quite a bit to get through. He says that a man threateningly approached him and yelled, "Fuck you." And this experience was apparently so horrifying that he missed the next two classes because he was shaken by these escalating acts. So somebody yelled "fuck you" at him, and he couldn't go to class.
Oh my God, bro! And the right wing is going with this snowflakery of the highest level.
Right, and it's the same way with the other lawsuit. The NYU lawsuit, which was filed mid-November, this lawsuit gets filed December 5th, the same exact day that the Republicans force all these college presidents to come into Congress and testify, and they gave that now infamous response of saying, responding to a hypothetical call for the genocide of all Jews. Not a real one, right? Just if somebody hypothetically said this, would this violate your code of conduct on bullying and harassment? And they all demurred. They all, said, well, it depends on the context. And for saying that, one of them, the president of UPenn, has now been forced to resign because of this, a very real victim of a manufactured anti-Semitism crisis. But so the same day this UPenn lawsuit came out was the same day Jacoby is in front of the House of Representatives delivering this speech, or outside the House of Representatives, giving a press conference with the GOP leadership. So then hours later, they drop this lawsuit. It's also the same day that the House of Representatives passes legislation equating anti-Zionism with anti-Semitism and saying that we have basically adopted the IHRA working definition of anti-Semitism. We have given them the Israel lobby, this gift that they've wanted for many years, which is to say straight up that criticism of the state of Israel equals criticism of Jews themselves and is therefore anti-Semitic. And so all of this is happening in tandem, right? This is all part of the same move. We are going to codify into law. We are going to effectively come as close as we can to doing that, to having our Congress declare it so, that this is anti-Semitic. Then we are going to come after these college presidents, right? Knowing that basically under our new rules, a call for intifada, you have seen, is now a call for genocide of all Jews, right? Under our new rules that we have established. So we can trot you out here, these college presidents, and if you try to push back on that and say, well, I haven't heard anybody calling for the genocide of all Jews, now we've got you because we have heard intifada. We've heard intifada, and now according to our new rules,
do you see that
is a call
Congress
for
hearing
genocide.
with the Harvard president? I covered it on this channel. It was the most bizarre fascist display I've ever seen in my life, because the Harvard president and the Penn president, they couldn't have been more commensurate to Israel in their position. The entire time it was like, I think these pro-Palestinian students are disgusting. I think they're awful. But technically, they're kind of like the free speech thing. And because they said that got one of them fired. And I looked into remind me what the Penn State president's name. I looked into it.
Her name is Liz McGill.
Yeah, Liz McGill. I looked it up. One of the reasons why she got fired, I don't know if you know this, Wyatt, was because she had quote unquote anti-Semitic speaker Roger Waters on campus, and that led her to already being in hot water with the Zionist forces on her campus. So when she essentially stood up for free speech, that was the final straw. It wasn't like anyway, go ahead.
So that's specifically mentioned in this lawsuit. Roger Waters' presence on the campus. Also specifically mentioned is the Palestinian Literary Festival, right? And also specifically mentioned is the executed poet academic Rafat al-Arir, killed just a couple weeks ago in a targeted assassination, according to human rights organizations, by Israeli soldiers, killed weeks after basically have a target put on his back after that infamous Barry Weiss Twitter thread where she basically singled him out because he made a joke about a debunked piece of Israeli propaganda claiming that Hamas was baking babies in ovens, a patently ridiculous claim that no evidence has ever emerged from. It's been totally debunked. It's also cited. So Rafat al-Arir, the now slain Palestinian poet, he is cited in this lawsuit as an example of anti-Semitism. His invitation, even though it was subsequently revoked and he never came, they attack him in this lawsuit. But really, the main takeaway, the most kind of interesting thing from this isn't just that they have put in these Israel lobbies in place to sue these schools. It's not just that these are the first two lawsuits, and they're still planning 4 more against which schools? I believe Yale is on there, UC Berkeley, Harvard, Cornell, Columbia, MIT, Stanford, and UC Berkeley. More lawsuits coming out against all of these schools on, I'm sure, similarly flimsy allegations of anti-Semitism. Where are they coming from? Well, they're coming from a bizarre corporate law firm whose last partner left that law firm to go be U.S. ambassador to Israel. They called from a law firm called Kasowitz Benson Torres, which is notoriously pro-Trump, notoriously a longtime Trump lawyers. They actually registered in 2020. They registered with the Justice Department as a foreign agent. Why? Because they had agreed to represent a Israeli real estate developer who specialized in building luxury housing in for ultra-Orthodox Jews on occupied Palestinian territory in illegal settlements. So this was a big client of theirs for a while, a guy whose basically entire life's mission is to colonize Palestine and to kick Palestinians out of their home and build the nicest, most cushiest furnishings for the illegal settlers who come and follow them. And because they worked for them, they had to register as a foreign agent for an Israeli foreign principal. So basically, they are Israeli foreign agents, right? They are not currently registered, I should say. They gave up that client in 2021, but that shows you just exactly who we're dealing with. People who have very recently registered to work as Israeli foreign agents. That is who is bringing these lawsuits and attempting to dictate speech policy in the United States, right? So that's kind of where this, that to me is arguably the major,
Wyatt,
most mind-blowing element of it. But go ahead, yeah.
The builders that you just referred to that register as a foreign agent, do you know their name off the top of the head? Because guess whose husband does build settlements? Wonder Woman's husband. So I'm wondering if it's the same person. Yes. Wonder Woman is married to a guy who is a real estate mogul who builds colonial settlements. Yep. And that's why it's the same guy. But go ahead.
I don't believe so. The man in particular is named Naftali Ehrenfreud. David Naftali Ehrenfreud.
That's not him.
Yeah, so he basically was behind a settlement called Modin Elit that took the developer's name is Kiryat Sefer, is the name of the company, and they were involved in this long-term settlement which took over a decade to complete. There were a lot of very strange questions about finances during that time, but ultimately it was completed. They were able to, run roughshod over this Palestinian territory and basically dominate it. So yeah, this Modin Elit settlement, which is notorious basically for having a particularly fanatical population. So that's really who we're talking about, though. We're talking about the most hardcore fringe of the settlers, right? That's really who these people align with, and that's who we're having our Israel policy guided by right now, are just these insanely Zionist figures, people working directly with the Israeli government, in many cases with these students, and then this law firm that has been described as Bibi Netanyahu's guys in the Trump White House.
Wow. This is why you guys also subscribe to the Gray Zone, man, because they are a threat with the amount of receipts and their ability to investigate and expose these fraudulent people. That's why if you go to their Wikipedia page was vandalized by deep state spooks.
Vandalized. I looked it up, and when you type it in, like the autocorrect, it pulls down from Wikipedia, and it just says the Gray Zone, American Fringe blog.
What? I don't know if you've seen it based on your reaction. I haven't. What they did to the Gray Zone Wikipedia page is a crime against humanity, fam. Like, so this is like the shit I'm waiting for RBN to get. You know what I mean? Like, when Mediaite ranked us as the most far right, far left, channel, that was a big moment. Like, that was a moment that I'm deeply proud of. They said we were extremely unreliable, one of the most inaccurate. I was like, yes, they finally was acknowledged, and we were hated by the media. But when you get something like this, fam, when you get something like this from my youth, and correct me if I'm wrong, because I heard Matt speak about this. There's nothing you guys can do about it.
No.
You gotta try to do something about it, but they're like, nah, nigga, we What we say about you guys is correct. I
Well,
don't think
the page is locked. You can't even. It's like it's
Yeah.
got like the
Can't
little
do
lock
nothing.
icon. You can't even edit it. You have to be like a special Wikipedia super sleuth butt sniffer to fucking. I don't know. I just
Dude,
like
I
they
was reading a little bit
apparently
so you
only
guys
the
get the
cream of the
humor
crop,
of it.
the most ass kissingest of the Wikipedia editors are allowed to touch our our special what did you call it? Vandalism job?
Yeah, you got your page got vandalized when Wikipedia is a State Department owned entity. Like the State Department quickly took that over, and once you realize that fact, you never can unsee it. Like I was one of them high school kids that would use Wikipedia to get through my papers
Right.
and shit. But once I realized it was propaganda, I can't unsee it. Like for real, look at what Wikipedia says about every single government that the United States do not like. And then when it comes to government, that's what they do. Like France is a democracy. Germany is a democracy. Oh my God, Vietnam is a fucking dictatorship. North Korea. And Wikipedia would say shit like fact. Let me read a little bit of this and then feel free to chime in, Wyatt. I kind of go on the sub. This is funny here. So you guys see what they did to Gray Zone's page. I think this is funny. And I think this is something that you have to be honored by. The Gray Zone
I
is an
am, but I
American-
just
Go ahead.
every time I read this, they've added something new and even more outlandish.
They got someone that constantly think of new insults for you guys. But for people only listening, let me read it so you guys can hear it. And then feel free to chime in, Wyatt. RCJ. The Gray Zone is an American fringe, far-left news website and blog founded and edited by American journalist Max Blumenthal. The website, initially founded as the Gray Zone Project, was affiliated with Alternet before becoming independent in 2018. Listen to this part. It is known for its critical coverage of the United States and its foreign policy, misleading reporting, and sympathetic coverage of authoritarian regimes. The Gray Zone has downplayed or denied the Chinese human rights abuses against the Uyghurs. You notice how they stopped using genocide, right? Now it went from genocide to human rights abuses. Published critical conspiracy theories against Venezuela, Xinjiang, Syria, and other regions, and published pro-Russian propaganda during the Russian invasion of Ukraine. So the thing is, I know everything they're talking about here, and everything they criticize you guys for are things you guys fucking nailed it on. But anyway, I don't want to be too long on this. I'll give you last thoughts on this. I just thought it's funny, and we can get back on topic. Any last thoughts on this, Wyatt, before we move on?
Well, it's just when you look at who they cite for this, it's all just people that are just mad at us, right? It's all these like little like dweebs and losers and kind of academic little like freaks and creeps that we exposed, and then they decided to write some big long massive complaint about it that no one ever read, but that can be cited by these whatever their loser friends at Wikipedia and used to justify it. So it's if you actually read this, the substance of their complaints, like what a misleading reporting, and it's written by Vincent Wong. They reference an article by Vincent Wong, by this little State Department marionette that was in charge of the color revolution in Hong Kong. That is not a popular figure in Hong Kong because he basically shut down the city for months. A bunch of people were killed and burned alive in a bunch of really terrifying attacks. They shut down the city in not to accomplish like civil rights or something, but basically because they were paid to do so and being instructed how to do so by CIA cutouts in an effort to ramp up a new Cold War with China. And so because we pointed that out at the Gray Zone, because we reported on that correctly, accurately, we've never retracted a piece. They accuse us of misinformation, and they, write up nonsense saying that because our perspectives align with such and such that they always vaguely suggest that we're ourselves some, espionage outfit. They always imply that we're like, Kremlin functionaries or something. It couldn't be further for the truth. It's always projection from these people.
And they say you guys, and this is what gets me. And CJ made this point when we covered the Mediaite story. They say you guys use misleading reporting. How does that make sense? Because this is one of your tweets. And from what I see here, you guys see how they are using establishment sources? Like they will use establishment sources like us to debunk the narrative. That's why it doesn't make sense for them to call you misleading. The same way that we would debunk them constantly. I use CNN to debunk CNN all the time. You know what I mean? But anyway, any last words on this one, and then we can move on.
Let me just say this part, because somebody said it with the comments. I was cracking up when he was like, dweebs, freaks, and geeks. I was cracking up in the back. Dweebs is one of them words that just make me laugh like shambles. That shit is funny as fuck. Somebody else said it too, but go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, they are. They're just like
dweebs.
Yeah, they are. There's no other word for them.
Politics, and especially the media side of politics, when you're in the establishment, that's Hollywood for ugly nerds. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Beautiful, privileged people get a career in Hollywood. You become Gal Gadot if you are an establishment plant and you're beautiful. But if you're ugly and you're privileged, you become a Nancy Pelosi. You become a Jim Clyburn. Jim Clyburn would never make it in Hollywood. He don't have Hollywood. So instead, he becomes a congressperson. That's what it is. It's not real. But anyway, let's get back on topic. We went a little bit side, but that's what we do. We have fun on here. I don't want to keep you any longer for around an hour, Wyatt.
No, it's no worries.
This is why. Let me know how you doing on time and all that stuff.
We're good.
Good. This is why they don't like you guys, because this is what you said. And I'm gonna go get back to the Fox segment. We didn't get that much into it because this is one of your tweets. Things that are anti-Semitic now, not supporting Zionism, protesting a restaurant that fundraises for the fucking Israeli army. Sorry, he didn't say fucking. I had that part. I'm still getting the news. Like, you guys are protesting this guy. He funds the fucking genocide. Everyone who, if you're complicit, let alone fund, you are 100% a valid target. Mm-hmm. The fuck? Calling for a ceasefire, that makes you anti-Semitic. Yep. But what doesn't make you anti-Semitic, if you call for another Auschwitz, apparently. You can't make this up. This is why you're dangerous. This is why the gray zone is dangerous, because you weaponize their own words against them, apparently. So
well, and the other thing, I'll send you this too. Here, I'll just shoot you this little tweet I put out a little while ago on.
Feel free to send me whatever you want to share. Yeah.
Okay, I sent it to you on Twitter. But it ties into the same thing we're talking about, because if you read any news coverage of the supposed anti-Semitism crisis, right? If you just type in anti-Semitism into Google, I'm sure we'll get a half dozen articles here coming up about the supposed crisis on all that's happening on all of our college campuses. The Department of Education even opened up an official investigation. They're doing Title VI investigation. They're looking for civil rights violations at a dozen colleges because of this supposed anti-Semitism crisis. Any article you read, it will reference this ADL finding, saying that there's been a 377% uptick in anti-Semitic incidents. And then you have to ask, okay, so what anti-Semitic incidents? And it's just like A.O. Jacoby's supposed anti-Semitic incidents. It's from the river to the sea. It's Intifada revolution. It's anti-Israel rallies. 905 anti-Israels. Almost half of the anti-Semitic incidents, quote unquote, were just pro-Palestine rallies.
Yes, look at that. Including out of 2,031 anti-Semitic incidents, that included 905 anti-Israeli rallies. So, CJ, they include Free Palestine rallies as part of the anti-Semitism surge.
That's damn near half. That's close to being half.
45%. 45% of these incidents are completely made up, right? Yes. Which begs the question, what about the ones that maybe you tried a little harder to make up? What about the other incidents that you didn't phone it in quite so much and just give up the game and print openly on your material? By the way, these were not anti-Semitic incidents. They were anti-Israeli. But again, and this is why I emphasize that. That was why that House of Representative vote that almost half Democrats went along with, by the way, in the House. Just to let you know where they land on this ridiculous notion that even ardently Zionist representatives like Jerry Nadler from New York had to vote no against, because he said how ridiculous it is to conflate the anti-Zionist Jews that he has in his district and to say that those people are anti-Semitic. They're the most practiced, most devout Jews among his entire constituency, right? And you see them like the Torah Jews. You'll see them on social media. But a lot of these kind of sects that go really hardcore anti-Zionist, they are very devout Jews. They are extremely serious about upholding their interpretation of the Torah, which, as they say, does not include displacing an entire nation of people, does not include genociding millions of people. And in fact, they argue, I'd say rather convincingly, that is one of the most anti-Semitic things you can do, and one of the biggest affronts to God possible, is to carry out this kind of massacre in the name of religion, in the name of peace, and in the name of God. And I agree with them. And I think, if you think about it for a second, you would understand why it is so absurd. But because we now have our government officially declaring that anti-Zionism is anti-Semitism, you don't have to think about it anymore. You don't even have to ask the question anymore. It's already just part of the discourse.
So Wyatt, white American Zionists found a new word that scares them. CJ, you know that? Intifada. That's the new word. That's scariest shit. Like, they say that word on Fox News and MSNBC, and they immediately get white people terrified.
It even sounds like Antifa. It even sounds like Antifa.
Like Intifada, it just, what's the best word to put for it? It just resistance. It means it's like struggle, right? So you struggling against the colonial regime, and they turn that into like this slur. And the same thing in where they use like strange sounding words that not Western to scare white Americans. And I remember like when I was a teenager, before like my mom decolonized, like you would like, I see like examples of them doing that. Like I remember like, oh shit, Allah Akbar, what does that mean? Right. You know what I mean? That was like during the war on terror shit. And I remember like when I was a teenager, I'm like, wait, Allah Akbar just mean God is good? Like that what it means? Right. And people were freaking out about that. I learned that when I was like a teenager. I'm like, that what it means? That what the term you guys was afraid of? And that is what they used to demonize Muslims during the Iraq War and the War on Terror. The same with Intifada. So if you're going through this for the first time, I know this is confusing, but this is not my first rodeo. You know what I mean? This is not Wyatt's first rodeo. This is not Murray Kimbley's first rodeo. I am seeing the same fucking tactics being repeated all over again. Weaponizing scary sounding Muslim language. I saw some right-wing account a long time ago where they're like, oh my God, look at these Palestinians chanting Allahu Akbar. They're anti-American. So saying God is good is bad in America now? But anyway, I'm going to show you guys.
Saying God is good is no longer acceptable. There's quite a few Sunday schools that we're going to have to get in line. Like, I agree with you. It's Intifada specifically, I think the word, I've heard it mean awakening or like shaking off too, but it's like uprising. It's like revolution, right? It means what it means depends on who is saying it and, their intentions. And generally speaking, the intention of a Palestinian who's calling for revolution is that they are calling for a political system that allows them to be included and not a second, third, fourth class citizen, and not be lorded over and have the rules decided for them. It means they want to be able to control access to their territory. It means they want to be able to have a passport. It means they want to be able to control the water next to that they live beside. They want to be able to fish further than 3 miles out of it. They want to have their own airport that they can bring people in and out of. They want to be able to vote. They want to be able to use the same roads as Jewish people. be able to go to the same parts of the country as Jewish people, right? And those things could collectively be described as a revolution because there's no feasible way to achieve them under the current Israeli system. The Israeli system, which openly says there is no two-state solution, there will never be a two-state solution. The Israeli system, which lied and pretended for years, but under Netanyahu has completely given up the charade and is not pretending anymore. Netanyahu openly saying a two-state solution would never work, and October 7th proves it. And meanwhile, the United States is pretending, Matt Miller is pretending that this is a fringe view in Israel, that this isn't a mainstream, we don't share that view. Who cares if you share that view? It doesn't matter if you share that view. That's their view. It's not a question of whether you believe it. It's a question of they believe it. And they openly state it. So, we have our political leaders just basically looking like hostages themselves, standing up on a stage while the Israelis announce that they're going to continue for at least many more months. And oh, by the way, thank you for doing all this for us, America. Couldn't do it without you. So, I mean, it really does. It starts to call into question at a certain point, like, who's calling the strings here? I always assumed that Israel was as an outpost, a settler colony of the West. And now all of a sudden, you guys are acting like you can't call your dog to heel. And, to me, it's kind of ridiculous. But there is an element of truth to the idea that, look, these people are going to just do whatever they want. And the American political system is so wedded to them and so intertwined with them that even if they wanted to stop it, which they don't, that there might not actually be that much they could do, at least in terms of maintaining their role within this political system here, right? If you go rah, pro-Palestinian position in American politics, you are effectively signing your own death warrant. You're not going to be allowed to get a leadership position ever in either party. So, there is something to be said about how much power these people have over American politicians. How much of it is voluntary? Plenty of it. Certainly, Joe Biden has been one of the, Zionist lobby's biggest supporters for decades. But even now, it's kind of bizarre. You keep hearing people like Lloyd Austin, of all people, kind of coming out, telling them to pump the brakes, saying, oh, finally, I guess enough is enough for us to at least say something in public, even though we're going to continue vetoing any UN resolutions. That's definitely part of it. That's definitely part of it. There's a new piece out this morning that said that Biden is losing his mind over these poll numbers, and that he's looking for someone to blame among his staffers, and is asking what are they doing?
Imagine Joe Biden dementia losing his mind. Joe Biden is that's just funny. I just thought that was funny that dementia Joe is losing his mind. Okay. Yeah, so we have the RFK story if you want to stay for that, because we're gonna rip his Unhinged Zionism apart.
Oh,
so I'm gonna get through
Palestinians.
Yeah, so we're gonna get to that next. If you want to stay for that one, that'd be great. So I'm gonna quickly go through this story. I'm almost done, CJ. I'm gonna quickly go through this. We're not gonna watch this video that much longer. But there's a reason why they're doing this psyop, and I'm gonna show you guys real quick. We're almost done. Let me get back to this segment.
Antisemitism spreads across American college campuses, especially in the once elite Ivy League. Harvard is now seeing a nearly 20% dip in early admissions applications in the wake of that.
Yeah, and this, of course, as students and alumni alike call for University President Claudine Gay to step down after that disastrous House testimony that we will soon never forget.
Disastrous.
That we will soon never forget.
I cannot emphasize enough. I watched a good amount of it, guys. I didn't watch all of it. I got a lot of highlights. They could not have been more pro-Israel unless they straight out came out against the Constitution. They condemned the Palestinian protest. They say they disagree with it. They tied, and this is what the Black Harvard president did. The Black Harvard president, Kuhn, tied pro-Palestinian protests with the KKK, CJ. She was like, well, we know that the KKK is deplorable, but technically they got free speech rights. At the same time, we need to do with Palestinians. That is the shit that she was saying. And they still hate her simply because she stood for the free speech rights of her students, which is insane, but I'll let it continue. We're not going to go too much longer on this.
Chavos Kestenbaum is a second-year graduate student at Harvard University, and he joins us now. Chavos, good morning to you. You know, when you apply to a college early, that means that it's your top choice, that you really want to go. And there's been a 17% drop in those kinds of admission, those applications. So why do you think this is happening? Do you think it's related to what's going on Harvard's campus with anti-Semitism?
Absolutely. The insidious ideology of antisemitism was pervasive on American college campuses well before October 7th, but they were certainly brought to the surface after the attacks. This ideology, which in very much is enabled by DEI, creates this binary narrative where you are either an oppressed class or you are an oppressor. And in fact, there was a Harvard-Harris poll of 18 to 24-year-olds, and it found that 60% of young people found that the October 7th attacks could be justified in accordance with Palestinian grievances. 79% support the ideology that Jews are.
Young people quote the law. Oh my God. How dare young people cite the fact that the Palestinians and Hamas have the right to armed self-defense? How dare they? But let's continue. We almost done with that.
Oppressors. And then what's remarkable is that 58% admitted that Hamas would likely commit another genocide. But get this, 51% still said that nevertheless, the state of Israel should be, quote, ended and its territory given to Hamas.
It should.
So the American people are listening to this type of violent rhetoric, and they're saying, I don't want to be in this type of environment. So it's not a surprise when you have a president at the top who's advocating or enabling, in many instances, anti-Semitism.
Sure. I like that response. Sure, yeah, totally. No, I mean, he was clearly given a list of talking points by this same law firm, right? That's behind all of these lawsuits. That's behind all of these students. They're telling him, oh, you know, hit the DEI thing, hit the woke thing, critical race theory. If you can shoehorn that in there too, why not? You know, basically just here's a bunch of right-wing talking points that you can do, because they basically, I think the decision has been made at this point. You know what? Like, let's just go all in for Republicans on this thing. Yeah. We're gonna turn this thing into a right-wing issue because the Republicans have no segment of their constituency really that is actually vehemently pro-Palestine. Whereas, you know, basically they have a whole bunch of evangelicals that are vehemently pro-Israel, and then they have a bunch of people that are kind of like, could really go one way or the other, don't really have particularly strong feelings on it. And then, you know, you have sort of a few of the kind of MAGA people. Some of them are like pretty anti-Semitic, and they're like, okay, whatever, you know, fuck Israel for whatever reason. But in terms of the Republicans, that's such a small percentage. Whereas with the Democrats, this is like a legitimate issue, especially for the young generation. This is a major thing. And this is what the polling suggests, that Biden is now down. He only has a 38% approval rating. It's the lowest it's ever been. He's down 10 points in Michigan. 10 points, right?
He's losing
Michigan.
to Trump. I think Savvy sent us a poll, didn't she? Like CJ, where Trump is beating Biden in the youth vote. It's fucking crazy, man. It's crazy.
Right. Because the people who like Trump are going to go vote for him. And who likes Biden? Who is under 35 and likes Biden?
That's true.
You know?
Yeah. So
and think about that. 10 points in Michigan, right? Clinton lost Michigan. A big part of the reason that she lost, probably the biggest reason that she lost in 2016, was Michigan. Then they won it. Biden won Michigan in 2020. They're down 10 points again. They're going to lose Michigan again. Why? Because of this war of aggression that the Biden administration is co-signing.
So this is why this is important to cover. There's never been a more effective attack on free speech than the anti-Semitism psyop. I know a lot of people like to make up a lot of these things, but this is the biggest threat, because now you got bipartisan support on this, uncritical bipartisan support. I mean, talking about people on the right wing that made their entire careers on free speech is switching on this on a dime. Zionism called in a favor for everybody. This is go time. If you've been on the payroll, if you consider yourself on the Israel team, now is the time where you engage in propaganda. Now this
The
is
rent is due.
Yeah, the rent is due, and everyone got this message where everyone is shifting on this in such an obvious way. Being watching propaganda, and this is the end goal. The Zionists that are exporting their fascist ideology in America, and American Zionists are importing it. That's the right way to say it. That was alluded to me earlier. Got
What an
American
amazing
Zionists.
headline.
Yeah, look at this. And I want you to feel free to respond to it, because now they're just saying that, because you can't just say this immediately. You have to cook. You got to cook a little bit. You know what I mean? You got to have the students come out. You got to have so few right-wingers come out against it. You have politicians come out against it. You got to run quite a few segments. Then after you cook it, after you tenderize the PSYOP, then you put this out. You come out and say what the end goal is. To fight anti-Semitism on campuses, we must restrict speech. And the last thing I'm gonna show you guys, my segment's over, and you can chime in, Wyatt Reed. This is a friend of the show, Gaijin girl. We covered her before, and I apologize if I'm misremembering, but I believe she's the Jewish woman who called out Elizabeth Warren. We covered, like, she was an activist. We covered a few times.
Oh, at an event, right?
Yeah, you know her, right? But anyway, the point being,
so,
she's a
yeah.
base activist. I'm misremembering the exact event, but big shout out to her because she's engaged. She called out people all the time, similar to Jose Vega and Lucy Blue Moon Red Wine, because she's a Jew who's against Zionism, right? So you want to know who was more than happy to accept this anti-Zionism? I'm sorry, this anti-Semitism free speech PSYOP? Elon Musk.
Oh, right.
So another thing, I'm Paul. I know I'm an asshole, guy. I know I've been doing this unbearably recently, but just again, another thing I write was I told you guys very early on, if you think that Elon Musk was going to stand for free speech, you are out of your damn mind.
Yeah.
So this is a Jewish person who was censored on the quote unquote free speech X for calling out Zionism. Where they removed this tweet. She said Zionists are sociopathic. Shannon admits to being a Nazi. Zionists are sociopathic, anti-Semitic ghouls who conflate Judaism with their genocidal ethno-cleansing ideology. We fought against Hitler in his reign, same for the principle for Israel, not in our name. So this is a Jew criticizing Zionism, calling it out as a sociopathic ideology that it is. But even if you don't agree with her, she has the right to say that, right? Especially as a Jew.
That's the thing. And that is the other consequence, very much intentional consequence of the anti-Zionism equals anti-Semitism tomfoolery. Anti-Zionists are now a protected political class. You can now be discriminated against for your Zionism, right? You can now be a victim of some kind of racism because you believe in Zionism and you are now a victim, according to these new rules. So that all of this is such a big shift, it's insidious because it seems subtle, but it's actually huge. It has huge political implications for how we're going to restrict speech going forward, because now you have an inalienable right to demand that Israel be a Jewish supremacist state. And it is now discriminatory of you to insist that Israel not be a Jewish supremacist state.
So Elon Musk even put out a tweet, I don't gotta say for the story, where he said if you say for the river to the sea, they view that as violent, call for genocide. So
or decolonization.
That's another one he said. If you call for decolonization, river to the sea,
that is a direct threat of genocide, he said. Like, what?
After Torah Netanyahu, after bending to the will of Israel, like we knew he would, he is now censoring Jewish people for speaking out against Israel. So now, do you guys see why I say Zionism is the biggest threat to Jews Zionism silences Jews. So let me read a tweet. And I'll pass to you, Mike.
But not some Jews, right? Because people like Hanania Naftali, the Netanyahu's favorite propagandist, he can go on and post memes that say from the river to the sea, what was it? Palestine will be Israeli or something like that. He can go ahead and post that stuff, and that's okay. That can get thousands of likes and retweets. But if some account with 10, 20,000 followers, makes a passionate plea and says that Zionism is fascist or whatever and anti-Semitic, that's a crime against Zionism, which has now, been conflated to mean all Jews except for the wrong kind of Jews.
Yes, I'll just read her tweet for people who only listening, and then we can move on. Past you, CJ, if you guys have nothing else to add. Excuse me. She said, according to Twitter, calling out an ideology, Zionism, which believes in a master race and support an ethno-state built on ethnic cleansing and genocide, is violent speech. That's what they consider violent speech now under Elon Musk's Twitter. Twitter's arguing Jews who stand against the dual loyalty trope should be censored. So the anti-Semitic trope is that all Jews should be loyal to Israel. So if you're a Jew who speak out against that trope, Elon Musk wants to censor you. So I went long on this. I want to get time for RFK Jr. So anything else you want to add? You guys want to add to wrap that segment up? Going once, going twice, or we can move on to CJ. Feel free.
No, we can move on to the RFK.
Yeah. CJ, you want to lead that, or do you want to lead
that?
Yeah,
I can do it. Sure. Yeah, I have it. I know both of us have it ready. So, RFK Jr. Recently went on Breaking Points for Crystal and Sagar, and I don't know. It's no way they had that first interview, and then they didn't expect this same interview to have sort of the same contentious value to it. So let's now that's sort of my preface, and I'm gonna give you a 30-45 seconds, Nick, if you want to add an additional preface.
What's the name of his what's the name of that pastor you've been hanging around with? Shmuley?
Rabbi Shmuley?
Rabbi Shmuley. I always forget his name. But RFK, and I mentioned this earlier, he went mysteriously dark after October 7th. RFK is a very fucking opinionated guy. He's not the kind of guy who just goes dark. You know what I mean?
Right.
Whether you use him or not, he's the guy who I'm gonna leave with my opinion, and whether you like it or not. He went mysteriously dark. Now, I am of the belief that RFK Jr. is a puppet. I think that's clear now. He's being controlled by Shmuley and all these Zionist puppets. So after October 7th, he was given very direct direction. Clearly, you are a very influential person. You got a lot of quote unquote anti-establishment people on your side. You need to be very, very careful with what you say here. So he was very careful in the beginning.
Yeah.
And then after being
like you said, they were cashing in. They decided, now is the time to cash it in. All those favors, the time has come. All those free trips to Tel Aviv, the time is, the rent is due. Sorry. So
no, that's right. Perfect. That's exactly what I was getting to. So they wanted to make sure that this guy, RFK Jr., who's as influential as he is, they want to make sure he was ready. This is a theory. I don't have any evidence for this. But my theory is they wanted to make sure he was ready. So they coached him on Zionist talking points. Because it's clear when you hear RFK Jr. talk about this, he's not good at debating people who can debunk his bullshit.
Right.
And I don't know.
That's why he doesn't do it. That's why he doesn't do it.
That's a good reason.
That's why he would never had this conversation with Max Blumenthal. And Crystal Ball does she says a lot of stuff that pissed me off here. I'm going to get to it, but she does surprisingly well. I may bite my tongue on that later. But when I say that, I say that what I mean is that there's a reason why RFK Jr. picked Crystal Ball, because she's dim. We've played many times. We covered it. Don't need to explain. She's dim. She's the person that you want to debate on this if you're RFK. That's why it was shocking to see that Crystal Ball destroyed her. And I came to the conclusion after seeing so many of these clips that how RFK Jr. is in his zone when he talk about COVID. He's in his zone in Ukraine. Mm-hmm. He's not in the zone when it comes to Israel, man. He's following the Kennedy legacy. He's saying what he believes that he has to say on this. And there's some issues that you're good at. There's some issues you're not good at. And to me, it's clear that he is not good as selling the Israel project. It goes against his character, the thing he's selling himself as, so he struggles against it, which leads to this. Because that's my
Yeah,
it's
it's like cognitive dissonance. There's this cognitive dissonance. You can see it in his eyes, where he's just kind of like the light dims just a little bit, and it's just like, oh shit, I guess this is what I'm gonna be saying now for the next couple months. Like,
This is only 31 seconds, but of course I can't see you, so just give me a verbal cue if you want me to stop, because he does say some crazy stuff. I think I've seen maybe 3 clips. I don't know if you have more than that, but I'll play the 3 that I have. But here's the first one.
You talk about solutions for the Palestinian people. The Palestinian people are arguably the most pampered people by international aid organizations.
Are you kidding me?
Oh,
even before this war, 78% of people.
I gotta replay that.
Crystal, listen, you guys see what Crystal said? Crystal was like, "Are you kidding me, bro? You lost Crystal with your crazy nonsense." Crystal was like, "Bro, like you know how we listen to Crystal Ball stuff, CJ, and then she blow our mind? Like,
yeah,
we like, nigga, what? That's what RFK Jr. did to Crystal." But Wyatt, go ahead, chime in real quick if you want to.
I mean, that line must have sounded a lot better last night over a couple bottles of Manischewitz with Rabbi Shmuley in the back patio.
Rabbi was going, yeah, that's
so
it, just like that.
We're so pampered, yes. And then he tried to pull it out again, and it just didn't have kind of the same lasting power, I guess, as he expected. So yeah, that one just did not land. It's like, and you have to be so far removed from reality to say something like that. Most pampered people, like every day, another 100 videos come out of just like children looking for their parents, slogging around through the mud, people waiting in line for hours to get water. You know what I mean? No one has a normal life in Gaza anymore. Everyone across all classes, backgrounds, religions, everyone is suffering the worst human rights catastrophe, arguably one of the worst human rights catastrophe in living memory, right? And that's obvious to all human rights organizations. And to have some line like this where you're like, they're pampered, it's like you're not just trying to make a point, you're trying to alienate the other side. You have to, like, why would you say something like that unless you're just
that point, go ahead.
No, you go ahead, because I genuinely can't make sense of what you would have to go through your head to say something like that out loud in public, knowing it's being watched. Something so ridiculously out of touch and cruel sounding, such a cruel thing to say, I
want to speak to that because I was just thinking of the same thing. Do we believe, those who support RFK or those who think he has good analysis of some things, do we believe that this person is an absolute genius when it comes to analyzing Ukraine, when it comes to analyzing corruption, and then all of a sudden he becomes a babbling fool when it gets to this? No, he is smart across the board. He has made a calculation that there's 2 lobbies you don't cross: war and Israel. Yeah. Those 2 will end your fucking career. And if you're a politician and the politician is your career, then you don't want that to happen. The same thing has happened with Marianne Williamson, because I just cannot believe that this smart guy can identify COVID, vaccinate, all this other shit. And when it comes to Israel, then he becomes some babbling idiot. I don't buy it. The Israel lobby is very strong, and I didn't know they were this strong, though. They have proven to me, Nick and Wyatt, I don't know who else is stronger than this. I really don't know who's stronger than the Israeli lobby that got everybody in lockstep. Like, what other lobby has you saying just outlandish, ridiculous shit, and you're supposed to have a straight face? Like, Richie Torres does this a lot, and RFK Jr.
I agree, because when you look at the biggest lobbies in this country, like the oil lobby and all those other lobbies, they influence politicians, but they don't like destroy careers. You know what I mean? Like, you have progressive Democrats who pretend to be against the oil industry. There are just shit-lib Democrats who pretend to be against the oil industry. You can't even pretend to be against Israel.
Right.
You know what I mean? That's the difference in power. To your point here, so I think you nailed it. But we can continue.
Yes. Yeah, let's play and let's finish this and get to the other ones. I do want to get to the John Fetterman. We got plenty of
Palestinian people. The Palestinian people are arguably the most pampered people by international aid organizations.
Are you kidding me?
No,
Even before this war, 78% of people in Gaza said they had, not enough food to eat.
Right. And why is that? Why are you blaming
Well,
Israel
in
for that?
part, it's Hamas, and in
Now you see how he's not addressing it. What do you mean? Why? Why are you changing the subjects? You said they're pampered, and she's proving. What do you mean they don't have food? And then you say, who's that to blame? You see how he's about to blame? He's about to blame them not having food on somebody other than Israel when they control all access points and everything that come in and out of Israel. I think you were going to chime in, Wyatt. Go ahead, or Nick.
No, you're totally right. She just totally beat him on that point, and instead of being like, oh, that's interesting, as you would do if you genuinely wanted to understand the subject better, he just immediately shamelessly pivots to, oh, you're right, and it's also their fault. Oh, you're right, they're not pampered, and it's their fault.
So
that's so Zionist. It's so Zionist. Go ahead, Nick.
We can finish the clip and I'll chime in. We're almost done.
Okay, yeah, it's 10 seconds. That's what.
in part, it's the fact that Israel imposed a blockade and talked about putting them on a diet.
If your neighbor, first of all, Israel has no obligation. Israel built 3,000 hothouses and gave. You talk about solutions.
This is my opinion. When he says when your neighbor, he stopped himself because he knew that wasn't a good setup. Because if you're gonna say my neighbor does anything, my fucking neighbor can do whatever the fuck he wants to do. You're gonna now say if my neighbor's doing something, I need to do something to them? That's where he was going, and he stopped himself because he knew, okay, I'm saying some Rabbi Smully level shit, but I can't say that shit. That's even further out than Rabbi Smully, if I'm saying his name correctly. I'll bring up the other clip. Wyatt, did you have anything you want to go ahead?
Well, yeah, your neighbor, usually your neighbor has a house of their own that they're allowed to stay in. But in this case, you burned down your neighbor's house and your neighbor is now living in a tent and throwing rocks at your window. So you've decided to mow them down with, some AKs. So the neighbor analogy is not a great one because it kind of accepts Palestinian nationalism. It accepts that Palestinians have a right to a nation. And these zealots and hardcore Israel stands, whatever, they basically will make the claim that Palestinians aren't even a real nation. They say they're just generic Arabs or Egyptians or blah, 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 blah. It's ahistorical nonsense. But that is kind of the position that somebody like Rabbi Shmuley will take, is that, there is no Palestinian people. There are just, some amalgamation of self-victimizing Arabs who are in our way. That's basically, how they would present it. But as you say, RFK, he's just not versed enough on this issue to realize that he's making a mistake, that he's making a blunder by acknowledging that the Palestinians are a people, that they do have the right to a house in this analogy, or in real life, what would be a state, a house for the nation, but he just catches himself. He's stumbling. He's not in his element. This is definitely out of his wheelhouse. And that's why he's mumbling and babbling.
Yeah, CJ, I have a good thread here. I can make it easier.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, just bring it.
I thought you were looking for. I got a good thread here. But you can tell he's a Mossad agent, coach goon, right? And he's not you can tell he's trying to recall what he was coached, but he's not good at doing it, right? Because he does textbook Zionist projection. Everything that Israel tells you about Hamas is true about Israel. Everything that they project onto the Palestinians is true about them. I've never seen any group project more than Israelis on this. So what does RFK Jr. project? This is what they say all the time. They say Palestinians are pampered. Projection of the highest order.
Right.
No one in the history of modern society has been more pampered than the Israelis. They are so pampered, they was provided a country. Most people can't have a country because they don't have the ability to defend the country. Your ability to defend and oppose your sovereignty is very important for your ability to have a statehood. But the Israelis are so pampered, they was given a country and they are not even able to defend themselves with that country. So then other countries then provide aid so these people who are pampered can then defend themselves. What's more pampered than that?
For the last couple of years, Ukraine has become the #1 recipient of United States foreign aid. But for many years, and in fact decades, it has always been one country, and that country is Israel. If you want to talk about pampered, who is receiving the most foreign aid, it's Israel. It's not Gaza. Gaza is receiving, as we speak, basically no aid. Gaza is on the most extreme diet it can be put on by the Israelis. They are rationing the number of trucks that are allowed to come in and out and bring people food to eat. They are on a starvation diet. And Israel, you're right, has been pampered for generations, and there is no one more pampered than people like RFK, frankly, who was born with a silver spoon in his mouth,
yes,
to one of the wealthiest families in the country. Somebody, there is no one more pampered than these Israeli students who are bringing lawsuits against Ivy League colleges. These are the most pampered people on the planet, and the lack of self-awareness, or I should say the chutzpah, to be able to look at 2 million people who are literally starving to death, who are being bombed to death in the 100 every single day, and say that those people are pampered is literally unbelievable to me. It's actually
it's the most unhinged garbage. Like it's the most unhinged, and that's why I was clear in the beginning. Like, we dragged Marianne Williamson, and Marianne Williamson, despite all her flaws, is way better on this issue than RFK Jr. because Marianne Williamson does the progressive accept Palestine dance. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Where they speak out for the humanity of Palestinians to be oppressed in peace. You know what I mean? So she's not good on the issue, but at least she pretends
they're all pretending to be a different kind of dumb, but her different kind of dumb is like at least a little bit more work-withable.
Less dumb.
Work-withable. Like,
the thing is, at least she's pretending to care about Palestinians, even though her politics is effectively don't do that. But RFK Jr. like, nigga, I'm not even doing that. Fuck Palestinians, nigga. Fuck that shit. That's why he's another level of bad. And you gotta see, he's getting clowned for this. He destroyed his entire campaign because of this. But let's move on to the video for a second.
Yeah, let's do the next clip.
Here's Sabby's. And for a second time, and I'm not gonna police you guys. If you guys want to chime in, feel free. But just for a second time, let's try to make the clip go all the way through. But I'm not gonna police you guys. Here's what Sabby said. Having dirty water is pampered. I thought he was an environmentalist. And the number is around 93. I don't know the numbers on my head, but it's like 93% or so of Gaza water is poisoned.
It's higher than that. It's higher than that. I think it's 98 or 99.
Oh, Jesus Christ. I told you guys.
All right.
Let's go through these videos. I'm going to try to go through them as quick as I can. Then we can reply after they're done. And then we can move on.
So President Biden's administration, they have said that they have no red lines for the state of Israel and their conduct in this war. Do you have any red lines for Israel?
Well, the red lines are that you don't deliberately, you do everything you can, which I think Israel is doing right now, to avoid civilian casualties. But there's collateral damage in every war, and they're fighting an implacable enemy. I mean, I don't think there's any country in the world that would go as far as Israel has gone to not invade Gaza. I mean, Israel was being bombed by Hamas. Took over Gaza. Israel walked out of Gaza. There's no occupation of Gaza.
So President Biden's administration.
Let me make a comment. And you can pull up the next video. What I noticed, like me, I think I must be on the spectrum. I could innately just pick up patterns, and what the pattern I pick up with him when he's being unserious, this is how he sits. when he's on a subject he knows he's just bumbling, he sits like that. And another thing he does, he keeps not completing sentences. He'll go Israel, blah blah. Then he'll just stop and just start saying something else.
Well,
he
it's
doesn't
partly
do that when it's COVID. When it's COVID and vaccinations, he sits up straight, real clear.
Right.
But when he's other stuff, it's very
that vocal
disturbing.
condition.
Go ahead.
He has that vocal condition. I forget what it's.
I forget the name, but yes,
or something. And it what you're describing happens in that. When you get nervous, it acts up more, and so he is unable to finish those sentences because he's like not at ease. He's not in his element, and when he's in his element and he's able to, and he's confident in what he's saying, it doesn't affect him as much. And that's like I think a pretty well-known symptom of this condition. So he kind of has like a built-in lie detector test a little bit.
Right. I'm seeing it.
Where he's like, yeah, he's just like starts, like getting overwhelmed and overloaded, and you can see it. It's obvious. He's not able to talk.
Yeah. Like E. Heller said, his body language sells him out. Before we get to the next clip, the obvious, well, what I think is obvious rebuttal to that nonsense you hear. He was asked if there was a red line for Israel, and he was too cowardly to say no.
Right.
In plain English, he was too much of a coward to say no. So he says no in like 3 sentences. That's what cowards do when you don't want to say no.
It's like seven independent clauses. There was not a single sentence there in that entire answer. There was no, like it didn't make up still a single sentence.
Yeah, that's what you do.
Like blurted between.
That's what you do when you don't want to say no, right?
Right.
Did this dress make me look fat? I actually like the other shirt better. You know what I mean? You start rambling, say shit. But
don't we have a dinner to be at?
Yeah, don't. I'm not saying that that dress does, but I like the other suit better. You know, when you just say other shit. But if there are no red lines, and this was something that all Israeli supporters need to acknowledge, if there's no red lines for Israel, what separates them from Hamas in your eyes? Because the idea that they are proposing is that the difference between Israel and Hamas is that Hamas waged war in a uniquely brutal way.
That is.
But if you're saying that there's no, but why? Go ahead, why? If you want to chime in.
That is their claim. They claim that Hamas intentionally killed civilians on October 7th, and that Israel does not intentionally kill civilians. They're just tragic casualties of war, collateral damage, what have you. That is their position. They say that, Hamas is like a uniquely brutal organization. You can't deal with them because they, and I mean, to be fair, there are a couple of videos that show Hamas or some other Palestinian resistance faction opening fire on people who do not appear to be armed, right? So, okay, sure, that is the reality. But the claim that Israel hasn't done 10 times worse things, 100 times worse things, that is obviously a lie. And I mean, when you look at it on the whole, who is willing to go to employ more brutal violence to achieve its political vision? It's obvious that it's Israel. There is no contest. The number of casualties is now somewhere between 20 to 1, right? Civilian casualties, probably even higher. And so, it is a way that but this is the way that they claim to view the conflict, is that, Hamas actually, intentionally killed civilians, and Israel, in their mind, does not intentionally kill civilians.
Yeah.
They just accidentally do it, and then they feel bad about it.
Yeah, well said. And you summed up my point really well, and that's what I was saying. And Israel supporters are so dumb they don't realize they're making a mistake. Now, I would checkmate them on this every single time. If there's no red line for Israel, then you can't claim you had the moral high ground over any terrorists, because you guys claim that Hamas fight with no red lines, right? So let's move on for a second time. I could go on all day, but let's move on. And let's let the clip play, and then we chime at the end.
their charter and their public statements day after day are it's against Islamic law for them to even negotiate with Israel, except as a ruse. It says that in their charter. The only satisfaction for them, the only goal, is to annihilate Israel and kill every Jew, not just in Israel, but all around the world. So Israel, instead of going in and attacking, if Mexico elected a communist government and the communist government began sending shells onto civilian populations in San Antonio and Houston and say, we're going to retake Texas, which they have a legitimate claim to. We're going to retake it.
Okay, that was a weird thing to say.
How long would it take us to go in
I mean,
there?
I
It wouldn't
agree.
take us very long. We would go in and we would do whatever it took to take out the people who are sending the shells. And Israel, instead of doing that, Israel did something extraordinary, which is it invested in an Iron Dome, which is to defend itself again, just to live with missiles. There's thousands, tens of thousands of Israelis that have, on that part of Israel that have been raised in bomb shelters. Who would put up with that? There's
So, Bobby,
nobody in the world.
no one here is excusing the actions of
only
Hamas, but I think
Palestinians.
you would agree.
You see, this is where I hate.
Yeah.
I
was
hate the
about to say
fact that these people are the ones having these conversations because they have such a blind spot. Oh, Hamas, no, motherfucker, you should be saying no. Hamas should be doing this and more. It's what you should be saying because this sort of approach. It excludes the colonization, excludes the oppression, it excludes the taking of the land to say these things. And the reason you need to be not saying these things is to give legitimacy or to give acknowledge the fact that these people aren't supposed to be here. They're in somebody else's house. So when you say, well, I don't condone Hamas, then you're saying you do condone the theft of Palestinian land, the theft of Palestinian homes. When you say that, this is the reason I can't stand every time I watch. So
that's why RFK wants to debate her. That's why RFK wants to talk to Crystal, because Crystal is willing to come from that weak position where she had to speak out against Hamas, speak out against armed resistance. Now, this, CJ, if you don't mind, this will be the last clip, and we move on.
Yeah,
to
go ahead.
And the reason why I want this to be last clip, because this is where, and you guys see how neoliberal terror says Crystal ate him up here. So that's why I want to show you the one where this is the one I saw where Crystal actually does destroy him, and you can see RFK's horrific tendencies. But before I play this clip, go ahead, Wyatt, if you want to chime in before I play it. It'll be the last one on this segment.
So, but just to clarify, you can tell this is like RFK, all the tools that he has for how to approach these political situations. You can see he's kind of already mapped it out. So he went back to a good one, which was when he was explaining the Ukraine conflict. He would talk about, what about Mexico? What if, you had a nuclear power, next door, and they wanted to put nukes on your doorstep? Wouldn't you be willing to? And so he wants to go back because he knows that one's a winner. It's a good argument. It's been made by smart people, and it's an effective argument. So he goes back to that same well. But then, there is no real equivalency here, right? So he has to, come up with this bizarre, hypothetical communist government. For some reason, it's communist, and it starts shelling because of, a historical land claim. But, in this analogy, it's a separate state with a separate government, not a landless, occupied people. And so he's really struggling to come up with a way to explain this in easy to understand, kind of more black and white terms, but he just doesn't have it. The infrastructure there, the intellectual infrastructure is not developed there for him to be able to do this. So he just kind of comes up with this weird nonsense that doesn't really make any sense because he doesn't really understand the issue and he doesn't really want to. Yeah,
and the reason why I want to play this last one, because I think this one next to the Palestinian Pampered one's obviously the worst, but I would say this is the second worst performance out of them. I love the caption. by my friend Neoliberal Tears here. He says Crystal ate him up here. He felt so embarrassed he had to make up friends he had in Gaza, and then he blamed those friends for not cooping Hamas.
That's hilarious.
That's hilarious. Fucking and out all the videos, I think this one should have been one that blew up because that was a hilarious fucking caption. Because that's exactly what he did here. And think about what that means. Say, could they blame Palestinians for not cooping Hamas? In one sentence, Wyatt, they would say Hamas is the most violent, evil organization that engage in ruthless tactics that even the Israeli army can't defeat. But at the same time, the Palestinians with no weapons should coop them. You guys see how
It's the same way they justify terrorism in Russia. They justify assassination attempts and bombing attacks at cafes in Moscow. And they say, oh, well, you know, if the Russians don't like it, they should overthrow Putin. Until they overthrow Putin, we are morally justified in sending as many weapons and as many, like, horrifying, you know, we can send white phosphorus for the Israelis to send to Lebanon. You know, we can send all types of, like, pedal mines and all types of, like, horrific weapons. Because, you know, if the Russians don't like it, sorry, you should just overthrow your government and install one that we do.
It's fucking insane. But watch, you're going to say it here. This is going to be a last clip and probably the hardest one next to the Pampered clip to get through. But let's try our best. I'm not going to get mad, but let's try our best.
I don't see any proof of that. We right now, that people are deliberately targeting civilians.
But the government announced they were doing a complete siege on the 2.2 million.
Yeah, okay. You're talking about the siege. The siege. Now, we did for 10 years. We did collective punishment of Iraq. We actually killed.
I'm not trying to justify that either
here. Why are we just going after the Jews? Why is it only when
Bobby,
Israel does it? Let me just finish this right now.
Our tax dollars are going to fund what's going on, and the visuals of these children being killed and losing their parents and the rubble and, you know, the total destruction. This is something our government is backing.
I have friends in Gaza. Okay, I have a friend who's a father of 5 kids, and what he's living through right now is horrible. I have many Palestinian friends. I've been to West Bank. I've met with the Palestinian leadership.
You can pause it here. If you believe that a person could have many Palestinian friends while at the same time making up lies and saying he's down with the genocide, if you believe that, like, just jump off a fucking cliff. If you believe that.
And the thing is, CJ, you guys understand. For one, what he's saying is a lie. If you believe that, like CJ say, you're gonna have a hard life if you can't understand that this is a lie. It's so fucking ridiculous, the argument that he's using here. It's so ridiculous that he's essentially saying that I got a friend in Gaza, but he blamed.
He did the my black friend thing.
Secondly, it's worse. It's worse if you've been to Gaza and the West Bank. If you believe what he's saying, it's worse. If you're ignorant and you saw what the Israelis keep propagandized, there's a level of forgiveness. Not a lot. There's a level because you're a victim of propaganda. But if you've been there and you have a friend that told you and you still side with Israel, that actually makes you look worse, RFK. Don't you know that? But anyway, let's continue.
That's what I would have asked. That's what I would have asked if I was here. I'd have been like, and what's he doing right now? Have you talked to him? Tell me about your friend. What's he going through? Does he have cell phone service? When was the last time you talked to him? How's he doing? Has he lost any family members? You know, like, tell us about your best bud. You're clearly good enough friends with him to bring him up on TV, so you should be willing to talk about his plight too, right? Anyway.
And you guys see, and this last time I say before I continue, you guys see how easy Crystal is dismantling him? She does it so many times I couldn't point out in the video. But he said, I don't believe that there's a blockade on Gaza. And then she said, bro, Israel literally said they're doing that. You know, oh, okay, change the subject. You guys see how he changed the subject?
Okay, yeah, the siege, I guess.
Right after Crystal destroyed him, he just quickly changed the subject with no shame. But let's continue.
West Bank. I've met with the Palestinian leadership. I love the Palestinian people. It's excruciating watching what's happened. But why are we blaming Israel? Why are we blaming
they're the ones dropping the bombs?
They have
with our dollars.
They have to get at Hamas. They have to.
How are you getting dismantled by Crystal Ball, fam?
destroy Hamas, and Hamas unforgivable. Why aren't we
Because
blaming
they're
the
the ones
people?
dropping the bombs.
They have
with
to,
our dollars.
They have to get at Hamas. They have to destroy Hamas. And Hamas, unfortunately, build tunnels for themselves, but they did not build bomb shelters for their people. And they, Israel has told people, move to the south. There's food trucks there. There's medicine there. There's fuel there.
But there's not.
It's
The
only
area-
not. It's
the-
only not
The
there
area
because
they
Hamas
told them
steals
to
it.
go to is an area that is the size of LAX airport. It is a desert wasteland. There are no UN flag facilities. In fact, if you ask the Secretary General of the UN, he'll tell you there are no safe places in Gaza. You already have 1.8 million people who have been displaced from their homes. So, at what point do you say, okay, it's enough? Because the other piece of this, even if you say, and I know you're not saying this, but even if you say, I don't care about the Palestinian lives, they got to do what they got to do. It's the cost of war. What are you going to do? There's also a lot of evidence that what they're actually doing is fomenting increasing support for Hamas. Because if you think about it, if you're a kid and your parents get blown up, what kind of politics do you think you're going to have when you grow up? Isn't that going to be true?
You see how Crystal says that like as a that's the liberal argument to be like anti-Hamas. Instead of standing for human rights and saying it's bad to bomb Palestinian children,
you have to say this is actually you're actually.
Well, technically, it's bad to bomb kids because they become a boss. It's not bad that you bomb kids. You bomb kids. Anyway, I'm not gonna be too negative on Crystal because Crystal overall did a good job there. Yeah. But you gotta see there's still nuances in the argument that she uses that still kind of pisses us off, even when she's doing a good job there.
Well,
anyway, Wyatt, last thoughts on this.
She's arguing that you're actually the real Hamas supporter. The real Hamas supporter is you.
You're the real
right? Whatever.
Overall, I still hate her argument generally, but I would say I think she did good generally though.
No, for sure. And she because he brought up there's food trucks. There's food trucks for Palestinians. Like it's some kind of like craft beer expo in the hipster district, and they've got food trucks. Like we're like eating tacos, overpriced street. You know what I mean? Like it's just there's so far removed from reality that of course, yeah, anybody who's even, taking the liberal anti-Zionist perspective or Zionist critical perspective, it's just when you get to this Rabbi Shmuley level of derangement, then, as long as you're kind of semi-coherent, I think you're able to destroy that kind of an argument that's just so detached from reality. Food trucks for the Palestinians. Like, what? No. And she's right. Even the head of the UN has pointed this out. I'm not a progressive. Showing a maverick side. Good for him.
All right, so this is probably gonna be maybe 10-minute segment, and then we'll have time to do super chats and announcements before we head out at the top of the hour. But and this is the preface for it. John Fetterman. Now, if you recall John Fetterman here on RBN, Nick specifically, more accurately, has been calling out John Fetterman.
Oh yeah, CJ, I remember everyone. Yeah, CJ, I remember every single person who put John Fetterman. And sorry, I'm gonna let you continue. But I remember every single person who put John Fetterman, and I am never going to let them forget it because they attacked me because they thought I am the guy who does stuff for likes and tweets. I do stuff for views. I don't do stuff because I really believe it. I do stuff for likes and views. While they are legit, that's their argument. They smear me forever. As someone who was a progressive wrecker, and then when I went after John Fetterman, they're like, "Oh, look, here's Nick doing it again. Here's Nick using Israel-Palestine. Nick using the Israel-Palestine issue to go after our candidates." And now those same people are now doing these videos like, "I can't believe John Fetterman is doing this." I'm sorry, TJ. I tried to add that in my preface. You can continue.
No, that's a good preface to add. Did you want to add also, Wyatt? It looks sound like you might wanted to chime in before we start the video.
It was the Bernie cycle. It was the Bernie cycle accelerated into the span of like 8 months, where just all of these like the same people who always they're like the anti-tankies. They're like they really like that word. And that's like their whole identity is kind of wrapped up in like, I'm an anti-authoritarian leftist or whatever. And this is what always happens. It happens every 2 years, and the life cycle of this thing is just getting shorter and shorter. Thank God.
Yeah.
Thank God. All right, so I do want to just, I got 3 videos. I'm not going to play all of them through, but I just want to prove the point. All of them are talking this, Nick and Wyatt. Like, it's not just one. TYT, Majority Report. Like, I'm not going to get to all of them, but all of them are talking about it. I'll play probably 90 seconds of each one, and we'll comment. Here's the first one, Rational National, David Doe coping.
Democratic Senator of Pennsylvania, John Fetterman, has now come out publicly to state that he is not progressive. Despite his entire history, the way he got elected by running as a progressive. So I'm going to get to a lot of those examples because he's pretending now, or at least his staff is, that he's always been this way.
But he's not pretending that he's always been this way. Our RBN has called it he's always been this way before he was elected. Were you going to chime in, Nick? I couldn't tell if you were trying to speak.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, this shit is hilarious to me, bro. I ain't seen none of these. I'm so glad you're doing the segment, bro. Because, bro, how, like, this, there's a level of shame. Like, I don't know if you would, like, admit this, but there's a level of shame because you sold this guy as a progressive. You lied to your audience. Like, if I got stuff wrong, it's because I got it wrong, bro. You lied to your audience because the receipts that showed that John Fetterman wasn't a progressive was readily available. He said he's pledging his support to Israel during the campaign trail. What do you guys think that means? So now these people got to do this thing where I'm telling my audience the truth. No, you're not. You're correcting the fact that you lied to your audience for months. I think it's funny how embarrassed he obviously looks, but let's continue. They're not.
Isn't that the funniest headline though? Like just the whiniest, most like pathetic. John Fetterman comes out as a massive liar.
Yes.
Like,
I swear to God, this is not like a scientific analysis, but I think people like Mike Figueredo and David Doe exist to perpetuate the myth that. Well, not really myth, honestly, that left men are weak, fragile, soy boy motherfuckers. Look at David Doe and Mike Figueredo. They are the textbook, like, caricature of what the right wing paints as the weak, effective, anti-intellectual left male. And I know that's my toxic, but this is what they want the left to be. David Doe and Mike Figueredo want to cultivate a weak, fucking Pampered, we hate guns, no reason, that fucking weak ass left. But anyway, let's continue. They're not intellectual analysis. It is something that they want to, they promote, and people like this guy and Mike Figueredo, they are more than happy to fit that mold of a weak leftist establishment wants. But let's continue.
Yes.
But it's very clear he hasn't. So before I get to the recent comments and a bit of that history, I want to show you what's been going on with Fetterman if you have not been paying attention. Ever since October 7th, he has taken a very, very hard line supporting Israel. I should be clear, supporting the far right-wing Israeli government.
Are you talking about the guy that said he was going to lean into Israel before he got elected? Are you talking about that guy, David?
I'm sorry, but let me show it. Let me show the receipt.
Go ahead.
I do this every segment. I do this every John Fetterman segment because I'll let you guys know. I posted this tweet so many times during the Fetterman campaign. You know how many times I got blocked posting this? Like someone like Dave Figueroa, like, we need to support John Fetterman. And then me, the asshole, I would come in like, no, we shouldn't. This is what John Fetterman says about Israel. Let me take the comment down. Where I'll say, hey, guys, John Fetterman said this about Israel, and look at the date here. There was during the campaign, April of last year, during the campaign, he was saying this, and then I will post this. I'll put screenshots during every single person who promotes John Fetterman. I'll share this, and then they will block me. And then they're like, this nigga always using Israel, Palestine. And now these people now saying, now they pretend that John Fetterman flipped on the issue. No.
Right.
He was open about this as his position. And then David Figueredo went on the channel to do propaganda for that guy. Because they will lie by omission.
Because a lot of people within Israel do not agree with what their government is doing. So to be clear here, he is out supporting the far right-wing Israeli government as they are indiscriminate.
Absolutely. All right. Let's bring David back up and play a little bit of it. I was thought I was listening to it in the background, but let me rewind it just 5 seconds. I had listened to 5 seconds in the background here. So here we go.
Because a lot of people within Israel do not agree with what their government is doing. So to be clear here, he is out supporting the far right-wing Israeli government as they are indiscriminately bombing civilians in Gaza.
Not
and I'll get
true.
to the death toll
I'm
in a
sorry,
minute here
not
as
true.
well.
So once again, this guy misleads his audience. How's he got so many subscribers, man. So he says the Israelis don't support what their government do. That is a lie. I covered a poll that showed the Israeli government is upset because they want the Israeli government to bomb more. They're upset with Netanyahu because he failed to protect the hostages. They don't trust him because of his corruption charges. Israelis are not against Netanyahu from a leftist pro-peace perspective, like he led his audience to believe. But sorry, let's continue. I know we on limited time, but that's just a blatant lie, dude. Holy shit, man.
Well, I don't even think it's because of the hostage thing, right? Because if the Israeli public actually wanted the hostages back, there's one way to do that. It's negotiate. It's a ceasefire, right? And what they say in these polls, a majority say that Israel hasn't dropped enough bombs yet on Gaza.
Yes,
and they know that these people are so fanatical that they know that they are effectively calling for the death of the hostages. They are, and they're still. I mean, they just shot 3 of their own hostages. What, 2 days ago? Yeah. So anyway, this is insane because I didn't even realize Fetterman said that. He didn't just say I'm like staunchly pro-Israel and Israel has never had as good a friend as me. No, the normal boilerplate. He said I'll lean in.
Yeah.
He said we're not close enough already. We need to get even closer.
Yeah.
Like that's it. You know that
insane.
So that says you
Yeah, that's why his new statements doesn't shock me at all. It's his recent statements are in line with what he was saying during the campaign. But I'll put your back up, CJ. I'll just put that headline up for a second.
I'm switching the video to
Sam
Cedar. To Sam Cedar now. So let's listen to Sam Cedar and then we'll round it
I'll
out.
shut up. These people are so fucking dumb, man.
Hey, you're not gonna be able to shut up. Not with this guy. Not with this guy. Okay, so let's listen. It's not even 5 minutes, but we might listen to half of it. So let's listen.
Matthew of Philadelphia. Is New York a one-party consent state? MR should give Fetterman's office a call about Israel and him fraudulently running as a progressive and now saying he isn't one. I got right through 215-241-1090. I don't know if it is a one-party state. I don't think it is, but
well, so I mean, it's insane that he's saying the quote, "I am not a progressive." EC, who used to work for Ilhan Omar's campaign, just did a whole thread of like, I mean, how many times he referred to himself as a progressive. This is a different one than I was referring to, but
now do you see the problem?
He might have quoted himself
dumbass.
Here. Like just the amount of times he called himself a progressive as he ran. He's just
CJ,
lying.
You got the problem? I'm gonna stop there
progressive. Go next one. These are all his.
My bad. I couldn't get it to stop. All right, I think I got it stopped now.
Yeah, it's all good.
Yeah,
and there's a reason why I stopped it here. This is why I say Emma Vigeland, and by extension, anyone who work with her, are the dumbest people in political analysis. Like, if I had to pick one, it would be Emma Vigeland. Because she said, hey, remember that time John Fetterman said he was progressive? Remember that time that politician who was running in a race where politicians are notoriously known to lie? Remember when he said he was something? Oh, my God, a politician said something that wasn't true? Oh, my God, I'm so shocked. This is Emma Vigeland, fam, the dumbest person in political discourse. The person that said we should vote for Joe Biden because of climate. She's the person that said that Andrew Cuomo was doing a good job during the COVID pandemic after we learned that he killed elders. So I pick on her all the time because she's by far the dumbest, and she hates our guts too because she always throw like small jabs at us. Like she never wants to say our name, but she.
No, because then that means we've reached their level and they don't want to accept that.
We can move on, but you guys see the problem. Politician says something, we believe it. Now we upset because the politician didn't tell the truth. You guys see how they condition their audience to believe what politicians say? We should support John Fetterman because he says he's progressive. Meanwhile, at RBN, we were like, no, he says he's progressive, but here's his actions. and he's not. And then we showed him receipts. They're like, oh my God, look at these rowdy RBN. Look at the rowdy gray zone. Look at these rowdy people who use the actions of politicians instead of listening what they're saying. But let's move on. I'm done.
A progressive. Go next one. These are all his ads. Comparing himself to Bernie. Keep going.
I'm gonna let it play. I'm gonna let it play, but I should have said this before I hit it start. It's so weird that they're more up in arms about him saying he's not progressive instead of him acting not like a progressive.
Right.
You get what I'm saying?
Right.
Like they didn't all come out and go, oh, I'll do these videos on all these votes that he's doing. But now that he's just saying I'm not progressive, it doesn't allow them to give him cover. You get what I'm saying? If he says he's progressive and then they promote him, at least they can say, well, he said he was progressive. That's why we, that's why we, you get what I'm saying? But if he doesn't say it now, they have to go, okay, we cannot no longer use him as a cover for our progressivism.
The real disappointment
go ahead,
is not in his, the real disappointment is not in his lack of progressivism. The real disappointment is that they have been proven to be frauds again.
Yeah,
that's what they're upset about. They don't actually care whether or not he is progressive. He just, I mean, you're totally right. Just, you know,
I'm so happy you hear Wyatt, because that is spot on. I'm so happy you hear that. That shit is spot on. That they could care less, just like they prove they care less, Nick and Wyatt, because when you told them, Nick, this guy is for this guy is shooting joggers, they said, oh, Nick, forget it. That they told you they didn't care about his progressive thought. That's a great point, Wyatt, and I'll play more. Let me know if you want to stop.
Tweet if you're standing with these progressive champions.
Progressive champions.
2009, progressive rhetoric is great, but progressive results are 100.
And no, that he posted that in 2018, but that was an old article. Yeah, right. We have started a progressive movement here in Pennsylvania. Like, and then there's, I mean, we made the point, but EC just.
The Vanguard, they saw these tweets, bro. They were so fired up. They love John Fetterman.
Wait, they covered this? Wait, they covered this?
Bro, the John Fetterman,
I didn't know that.
Bro, the Vanguard saw John Fetterman tweets, bro. They're like, we got a new Bernie. We did it. They're embarrassed, fam, and they should be. We should never let these people who promote this guy ever forget it. I'm not the kind of guy who will, but let's continue. I'm sorry. I need to shut the hell up. I'm sorry.
He just kept collecting all of the times. All you have to do is search at John Fetterman progressive, and you'll be able to find all of his tweets calling himself such. It really is. It's bizarre. Yeah.
He's bad dressed in cinema.
Which is really, really disappointing.
Outside of his Israel policy, has his policy...
They saw John Fetterman wear hoodies and shorts, and they thought that he was a progressive because he wore hoodies and shorts. That's the extent at which the political analysis goes. That's the political analysis you get on the Majority Report and Vanguard. Like, oh my God, look at this guy who came from fucking wealth and generational wealth and Ivy League education. But this guy wore a hoodie and shorts. Surely he's a progressive.
All right.
His Israel policy is.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Wyatt, if you're going to chime in.
No, it's a dumb joke.
Okay.
Has his policy, do you think, changed, or is he just trying to brand himself?
I think the border stuff recently.
Now, if you didn't hear, I'm going to rewind it.
Yeah.
Sam listens to the whole conversation, and then he chimes in and says, has his policies changed or just the name? As if his policies, Nick, have been good. That's what's so weird. But let's listen.
They haven't changed. He's always been pro-Israel, Sam. Fuck are you talking about?
His policy, do you think, changed? Or is he just trying to...
On the campaign trail, he was like, I disavow defund the police. We need to protect the police. He was saying so much stuff. And I was like, bro, are you guys not covering this? Like, I kept highlighting all the horrible stuff. And people were like, oh my God, Nick is doing the John Fetterman thing right now. Like, no, I'm just quoting stuff he fucking said. But I'm sorry. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
All right.
To brand himself.
I think the border stuff recently is like, okay, because like when he was running, he's like, was he married to someone who was undocumented, and I'm super like concerned about that sort of stuff. And now it's, we gotta actually like talk to Republicans about this.
What's also disturbing about it, it feels like, is that he's 5 years out from an election.
He got 5 more years of this.
Like him tacking in, for
or he's building up so much goodwill now with like the bigger donors in Pennsylvania that potentially he feels like he can just bank it and then move forward. But I find the calculation to be bizarre. I don't understand why you would get elected with the wind at your back of like a young movement and the future of the party being tied to you, and then make this incredible pivot so aggressively. It's one thing, again, for him to be so aggressively pro-Israel, but to eschew the progressive label at this point, at least it's clarifying. Now that he's in power, now that he duped everybody.
He didn't.
And I guess we can color those that incident where he chased a black man down.
I know you want to chime in, but you gotta know this is her political analysis.
No, go ahead.
Why is John Fetterman doing this? I don't know. Kind of bizarre, isn't it? I don't know. I don't got answers. I don't know. I'm just here to be.
Why you would do that?
I have no idea. I can't explain it. I'm a very serious political commentator. I can't explain it. I think it's bizarre. I don't know. Why John Fetterman betrayed us? I don't know. Why Joe Biden portray? I don't know. Bizarre. Kind of weird. You gotta know how they got no analysis, no class analysis, no explanation about what's going on. They just, I don't know, man. Fucking, I don't know, man. It's kind of weird. Bizarre. Why do people think that these people are more legit than us? The mainstream position is that these people are more legitimate than us, right? We are the dumb, college dropout, loud Negroes that don't know what we're talking about. That's the general consensus of the Mediaite class, right? But we got class analysis. We explain history. We bring smart guys like Wyatt Reed on to explain to you guys why politicians are making the decision they make. Meanwhile, on PNC channels, I don't know, bizarre. Who knows?
Listen, she also brings up the jogger right here.
Now that he's in power, now that he duped everybody. And I guess we can color those that incident where he, chased a black man down the street with a gun a little bit differently now.
Really? You didn't listen to the black guy named Nick from RBN? This is unreal, Nick.
Unreal. Unbelievable.
This is unreal. So now they can believe the story, what you were telling them about John Fetterman in relation to that black jogger, when you was one of the people, Nick, that kept posting about the black jogger shit. Oh, what do you mean? Nothing's wrong. And now he's here. Now you want to believe the black jogger narrative for some reason. It is very telling to
remember, CJ, what I said.
Wyatt Reed's point. But go ahead. I'm just putting up a headline. I'm not gonna read it.
To me, it was a very important point because a person that is willing to pull a shotgun on a black jogger is most likely to be the person who supported genocide when they become a senator. I think those two things overlap. The pulling the shotgun on a black jogger and Zionism is very closely intertwined. And if you're someone who's willing to do that, you're someone who's definitely going to be authoritarian, believe in state violence, especially when you say it on the campaign trail. But go ahead, CJ. I'll let you continue.
No, I think that's it. That is. I just wanted to show the headline.
White one time in.
Oh yeah, let me. I would just want to. Oh, go. I'm sorry. Go ahead, White. Go ahead. I think he's still muted. Oh no, he's frozen. He's not frozen. There you go. There you go.
There you go.
Good. Okay.
Now I can hear you.
I was gonna say that she basically took credit for that, though, right? She was basically acting like she had taken y'all's position that whole time. And she's kind of like lecturing her audience, like maybe we should have, I guess some of us weren't crazy after all, And it's like she didn't say that. She wasn't bringing that up.
They always do that, bro. They always do that. Wait, they can't do it immediately, but watch. I give it by this time next year. You're gonna have people like Sam Cedar that are gonna be like, "Man, see, I was telling y'all that we should have been advocating for peace in Ukraine, man. I told you guys. I know, I knew that Ukraine was gonna lose. Well, they're gonna completely rewrite that. I think CJ dropped. Let's get CJ some time. I'll get some super chats. I think CJ probably has some internet issues. He dropped suddenly, so let's get some super chats. Hopefully he come back and we get the next time. Here he is. But I'll read a few super chats as he get ready. But you want to chime in? Wyatt, feel free. Going once, going twice. I couldn't tell. Thanks for 1999, Ivan. What is your perception? Sublation media. I'll just read one more super chat. I did it while you disappear, CJ. I always appreciate y'all. Much love, much love. Your perception of sublation media. Anyone want to take that on? I'm not sure what you talking about.
I can. It says, what is your perception of
Subbation media. I don't know. I would have to look that word up.
You know what you're talking about, right?
I don't know who that is.
Sublation Media. Oh, I think that's a platform. Sublation Media is a left publisher that critiques the left in order to transform it. Yeah, I'm not familiar with them. I was thinking like, yo, I'm like,
what is this?
I'll read one more and then I'll pass it back to you, CJ, and then we can read rest afterwards. And let us know how you're doing on time. Why I know there's a very long show today. I think for 1999, Ivan, being born in Russia, I appreciate your coverage of the Russian-Ukraine war. Nice. And now the war on Gaza. Just feeling grateful to you, American peeps. Please don't stop. You all are very heartening to non-Americans. And I try to tell my non-American friends all the time, please have some sympathy for us, because Americans are generally anti-war, and we live in a violent police state that will crush any serious challenge to the empire at all times. We should be doing more. We could be doing more. But the American people don't want these wars. We are just violently suppressed because we don't live in a democracy. I just want people to realize that. I understand. I understand why people hate Americans, bro. I get it. But I want people to understand that, bro, we are against this shit. Like, people are against the Gaza war. We are against the war on terror. It's just we don't live in a democracy. We live under a capitalist, authoritarian dictatorship. So anyway, that's my. I don't want to be too long on it.
I gotta take off, Nick. I got a hard out. If you don't mind closing, if you don't mind closing, I got a hard out. And Wyatt, thank you for joining us today. I gotta go pick up my daughter. She'd be in like 10 minutes. So I gotta get there. So this was a great show. I will be here tomorrow. Oh, we have Danny Haifong tomorrow. That's gonna be fire. So join us tomorrow. Wyatt one day, then Danny Haifong. Wow, we've been killing it the last couple of weeks. So enjoy, fellas. I'm gonna head out.
Yes, Wyatt, for free, chime in. I'll read some super chats and we get out of here.
Well, I was just gonna say, Americans in our hearts are anti-war, but we are constantly being bamboozled into not being so by the most effective propaganda machine since Joseph Goebbels. So basically, I think you should keep some optimism for the people of America to slowly wake up to what's going on around us, hopefully in time.
Yeah, appreciate that. Just 3 super chats and then we get out of here. Thanks for the 499, Sean. Thanks for your voice. Great to find RBN this year. Welcome aboard, my friend. Keep fighting. Trust me, we will, because there's no other way, right? I'm not sure what currency that's Mexico. I'm not sure what currency, but thank you for the 129. RFK Jr. suggesting that he would treat Mexico like Israel does Palestine in case of a false flag. It's gross. Absolutely. There were so many bad things he said there. There's so many different layers. We could have broke that down. I could did an hour alone, like not even with any guests. I could did an hour alone on that video, let alone all the chime in. There were so many horrific things that RFK Jr. said there. I don't know how anyone who is moral can reconcile voting for him. I had Danny's tweet up. We had Danny on tomorrow. I had Danny's tweet up earlier where he said in the tweet, I'm paraphrasing, I don't view people who are RFK Jr. supporters as moral. Like, even if you're against the other wars and you want to turn a blind eye on RFK's horrible position here, you are not a moral person. And I think that's a very good point by Danny Haifong.
Position, it's such a ridiculously pro-genocide position that it's really hard to understand how anyone could be okay with it. But there you are.
Yeah, the people who said that Israel-Palestine isn't a big deal. I have friends, the people I still like. They're like, oh, like RFK Jr. Israel-Palestine. People make too much of a big deal over that. Those same people changed their mind recently, but that take aged like milk. I want to make sure I say that because I want you guys to know these people have changed their mind. Like, the people who used to like RFK Jr., at least in our circle, they all turned against them. Like, at least the people I used to argue against, they
open to having him. I thought for a long time, okay, just this is a net positive having somebody say this stuff, going around in the mainstream media and saying things that we're saying. I didn't see the harm in it, and now we know, okay, that was the danger. This bizarre capitulation to the Israel lobby that just has, just like you said, aged like milk.
Yeah. Last super chat. I appreciate you hanging in there with us for this very fun long live stream. We usually do longer shows on Monday in general. There are a lot of coverage usually when we get back on the weekend. Danny Haifong tomorrow. I think for $5, Sean, Fetterman / GOP will bring IDF enforcement at the border, and they already are bringing it to the police departments. Censorship surveillance is connected. On that point, that's why I didn't get a chance to get to this. I may do a longer segment on the Black Israel-Palestine thing when I get a chance. But it's funny how, because I have a whole presentation over, I cut a lot of it, where Zionists are trying to do this thing where they're trying to pretend that they are pro-Black. They rewriting history. It's very funny because, like, the cops that are being trained at Cop City, the NYPD, LAPD, they are trained with IDF. Like, the same police brutality that Black Americans face, it comes directly from Zionist ideology that they pass from each other. They learn how to suppress Black people. They get the same techniques that the IDF used from Palestinians, and then and vice versa. So that's why that's absurd. I may do a long presentation if I have time this week on that. But with that said, as I said earlier, you guys should definitely check out the Gray Zone. One of my top sources, and I'm not bullshit, you guys, literally is my top source. Like, I go to Black Agenda Report, if you guys want to know. Black Agenda Report, Gray Zone, are like my top two probably. Like out of most print media. So I highly suggest you guys follow them. Wyatt, any last words, anything you want to promote? We had a lot of cover. I know there's something we didn't get to today, but I appreciate you staying with us as long as you did. So we reach out here in a few weeks, have you back on. So I appreciate it. Have a good
Definitely. And yeah, I guess final thoughts. Yeah, in terms of the IDF border thing, I guess. Well, that's been a big export for many years of the Israelis, is the so-called border surveillance technology, and actually a reason why there were a lot of people in the aftermath of October 7th who said that this was so well planned and well orchestrated that it had to be some kind of a false flag, or that the Israeli intelligence establishment had to have known and let it happen, kind of thing. A big part of the reason I always thought that was kind of nonsense was that many of Israel's biggest exports, it's weapons, it's technology, especially this kind of border surveillance stuff, they all depend on this projection, this image that Israel tries to project of itself as this like impregnable fortress that's keeping all these Hamas terrorists out all the time. And so that was such a major blow. And you could even see in the stock markets, it was such a big blow to Israeli stocks that somebody, quite likely Hamas itself, was able to make hundreds of millions or even billions of dollars by shorting all of these stocks, and knowing that would happen. That they would.
Do you see that the number went down again? I'm sorry to interrupt, but I didn't have time to cover this today, but the death count went down again. Like, I'm trying to see if I can quickly pull it up, but we don't have a lot of time. But the death count went down for like 1,400, then went down to 1,200, and now they said like 600 now. Like, bro, when people learn the truth about October 7th, bro, Israel gonna have a lot to account for. We don't know what it is. It's gonna be revealed one day. Last thing I would say here. Go ahead, Wyatt. Go ahead.
All of this at the end of the day is about money, right? It's all about it's all money grabs. And so of course, this border thing, another big money grab for tons of companies, tons of different development companies, obviously, and then these border surveillance tech people, all of this. What's the story of the day? Oil is up 3%. Natural gas prices close to 7%. Why? Because BP isn't shipping through the Red Sea anymore. 7 shipping companies no longer shipping through the Red Sea, controls 10% of global commerce. All of this, it's about money, and we're seeing it. It's like World War I. We're in the end of an era, and we're just now seeing kind of the fault lines of all of this. It's a fascinating moment to witness, although it is really obviously horrifying that people in Gaza have to pay the price for their desire to maintain economic control. Anyway, with that, check us out at the Gray Zone.
Yeah, there's no better place to learn about this than the Gray Zone. Make sure you gotta check out the live stream. And then for the people who missed the announcement last week, Nick at Night season 2, I'm calling it, begin January 4th. I'm doing Tuesday and Thursday, and Saturday at noon. Going to be the new show that I'm starting here at RBN. Very excited about it. Why I'm going to be bugging you to join me. It's going to be very foreign policy based, my show. about 60, 90 minute foreign policy focused, state violence focused show. That's going to be next year. Nick and I be on hiatus recently. End of season 1, we start season 2 January 4th. So that's the plan. Thank you for joining this, Wyatt. Make sure you guys check out the Grave Zone. And we're going to be live with Danny Hyphon tomorrow. I'll put you in the back now, Wyatt. Make sure you guys support us on Patreon if you guys enjoy the streams. It helps us pay everyone who help us out, like Aaron, who help us with our thumbnails and everything as well. Appreciate you guys for watching. Have a good one, friends.